Hello there. I am here to talk to you today about one of the most powerful methods and ways for healing a person permanently from candida, irritable bowel syndromes, Crohn's disease, colitis, leaky gut syndrome, and so many other, basically almost any food allergy you could think of. For lactose intolerance in children and babies, in infants, in adults and grown-ups, any kind of serious gut issues and intestinal problems and diarrhea and anything like that. And this will also significantly boost your immunity. It's going to significantly boost your body's ability to deal with all kinds of foreign invaders, any kind of viruses, flus, and sicknesses and illnesses that we contract through eating foods that have, parasites or viruses and protozoa and bad bacteria and things that we consume. Also heal. It'll also really significantly help in healing people who have severe issues that were introduced through diet, through antibiotics, I should say. Yeah, that's another one. Antibiotics induced dysbiosis of the intestinal flora. Dysbiosis induced through pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and any other kind of additives that we put on into our food supply in order to make it less likely to be destroyed by insects and other things like that. Basically, almost anything to do with the digestive system upset can be cured through literally and permanently through the methods that I will suggest in here. Now you're going to see, if you look in the video description, there's going to be a few sources that I'll recommend to you that you can look at, that I would suggest as primary sources for healing and curing colitis and all these things. Basically, from all the research I've done and all of the people that I've seen and looked at who cured their colitis, the vast majority of them had sweeping success. All introduced some form of fermented food into their diet. And the fermented food always means that this food has included within it probiotics of sorts that help to digest and break down the plant matter or the milk or whatever it might be. It could be rice, like miso, for example, and rice is like fermented rice that you can get from Japan. It has certain probiotics, very limited. I think there might be 1 or 2 strains in a miso, so it's not a really significant for a source of probiotics, but it's still a good one, and it's still a positive thing you can introduce into your diet. With most people, when they take probiotics, they like to do them orally, and there's a good reason for that, an obvious reason. It can really reach the small intestine, which is right down in and just below your stomach, very, very effectively and efficiently and rapidly. And there's some good to that, and there's some drawbacks to that, especially when we're talking about foods like kefir, even just probiotics in general, taking them in capsule form. Well, when it comes to kefir, for example, most kefir is already pre-digested. You have these lactobacillus that go through and they break down the lactose and the various other strains of probiotic that is found in kefir. Will break down the lactose and make it basically pre-digested, so that your body doesn't have to do really much of anything. It basically all it has to do is soak it up. And so what happens when we take kefir for colitis, now in particular, colitis is in the large intestine at the very other opposite end of your whole digestive system. So when we're drinking that kefir, most of the probiotics are actually destroyed by the stomach acid in the gut. Okay.
So if we look here on this article on Just Thrive, if you just look it up, probiotics and stomach acid, you'll learn all about it. Researchers discovered that the body's natural harsh stomach acid, which is necessary for digesting all types of foods, kills off 99.99% of the probiotic strains in the major sources of probiotics long before those products could even get to the small intestine. This graph shows the results of the study. All products except Just Thrive have less than 0.1% of survival through the stomach. Just Thrive was the only product that showed 100% survival through the gastric system, providing 100% effectiveness as a probiotic. Okay, so the reason why they have that success rate, and others do as well, is because their capsules are designed to survive the stomach acid so that it reaches the small intestine, and then from there they end up colonizing their gut. So that's an important factor. If you want good quality probiotics, the only ones that will really truly make it through are the ones that are designed with the capsules that will not be broken down in your stomach acid. They'll pass through into your small intestine, and then they'll dissolve, and then your probiotics get there. Now, kefir, I think, will probably have a better success rate overall. But, you know, one way to help this process would be to take a small amount of baking soda to neutralize the acid in your stomach prior to the ingestion of kefir. That's one way you can really enhance the process. But if you do take enough kefir, I believe that it certainly does, and it certainly will have some effect. But this is one of the main reasons why it's so important for people to take kefir rectally and not just orally. You have to take it both ways.
But some amount of them do survive, and they go through and they go into the small intestine. But because the kefir is already pre-digested, it doesn't really stick around very long. It doesn't last very long. It doesn't make it all the way through to the very other end of the colon very easily and in very large quantities, because our bodies are already basically assimilating and absorbing all of that kefir before it even gets to the large colon. The majority of it has already been absorbed. So therefore, because it's already digested, your body doesn't have to do anything, you know, just soaks it right up within the first, I don't know, few meters of the colon mostly. So how do we then deal with this? How do we get around this issue of trying to colonize the body? Well, the goal is really, we really want to hit every area of the colon as much as possible directly with as much kefir as we possibly can in the shortest amount of time possible. That's the goal. We want to colonize the colon. We want to colonize it quickly. We want to colonize it effectively, and we want to do that in a way that allows everything to come in contact with as much kefir as possible. And there are a number of ways we can accomplish that. I'm going to mention more than one. I'll mention one later. But for now, I guess I'll start with one particular method. Actually, there's a few. Now, one of them might be, if you megadose, like if you're drinking a gallon of kefir a day, you might have some results that end up helping to recolonize your entire body fairly rapidly. But one way you can help it to get through from one end of the body to the other is by taking flax, chia, and psyllium husk in particular. Those are the three I recommend and that I've had the most personal benefit from. Those are amazing, amazing fibers. And you blend those together, you know, in a smoothie with your kefir, and just drink that as one homogeneous liquid. And what will happen when you mix your kefir milk with your fiber is that because much of this fiber is insoluble, and the kefir is literally, like the fiber is like a sponge. You'll see how it becomes gelatinous, makes the kefir thicken. Well, what happens is that kefir is being sucked and absorbed into that fiber. And then when you drink that, all of that goes through your body, and it'll have a tendency to last far, far longer, and it'll reach far, far further into your large intestine, and it'll reach your large intestine with much of the kefir and much of the probiotics intact still. And because previously it was just all assimilated in the first few meters, perhaps because it's already pre-digested and it doesn't require much effort. And whatever food we eat and whatever else we have in our diet will help to kind of slowly but surely push that down. And that's where a lot of the kefir strains through into the large intestine. And that is largely why there's this huge detox symptoms that people often encounter when they're drinking kefir. Basically what's happening is that people who have a dysbiosis or a lot of bad bacteria in their colon somewhere, they've already taken root. They're already in there. They're already causing us havoc. They're causing us problems. We're introducing the kefir orally. We're drinking it. And there's a battle that ensues between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. And this battle is literally where this detox process is really all about, what it's really all about. And there's an article that in the description that you must read on how gastrointestinal bacteria affect our diets. And in that article, I recommend it's a must read. You must read it from beginning to end to fully understand or get a very, very much more in-depth understanding of how bacteria, good and bad bacteria, interact in the gut and how they're all competing. So that these bad bacteria are constantly competing for territory, for nutrients. And there's this constant battle between them. All the bad bacteria are fighting and duking it out amongst each other for space in the colon and for food and resources. And the good bacteria are trying to find a way. Our good bacteria are trying to find a way to find balance in the colon as well. And so when we start dosing ourselves with kefir gently through oral intake, say a cup or so a day or whatever we're doing, that the detox symptoms are there largely because there's this huge battle taking place for territory and for nutrients and for a foothold in our intestinal tract. And that is where a lot of the toxins are coming from with colitis and with Crohn's disease. These bad bacteria are releasing all these toxins and carcinogens and human mimicking peptides, hormone mimicking peptides to try to control our diet, to try to control our cravings and things like this. And they're just throwing things all out of whack, and the body's trying to get rid of all these fake peptides, these fake hormones, and it does that by producing antipeptides, which end up causing a kind of autoimmune-like reaction, but it isn't really autoimmune. The body is trying to get rid of the fake ones, the fake peptides and chemicals and these toxins that is being released by these bad bacteria, and so the body's doing whatever it knows and whatever it can to deal with it, and it ends up causing good peptides and other things like that to be destroyed in the process, causing a kind of autoimmune reaction. So the key in healing from these diseases is to bring in equilibrium and a symbiosis in the gut. We want to replace the dysbiosis with symbiosis, and we want to take out and we want to literally just storm the gates and reclaim the territory that has been taken over by bad bacteria with good bacteria. There's one particular strain of bacteria, that colitis, that can be induced through antibiotic intake. So often colitis is a result of antibiotics that have been prescribed by a doctor that, when taken, basically destroy everything in the gut in a kind of scorched earth approach, kind of like chemotherapy. It goes through and it kills all the good and all the bad bacteria, and suddenly, they're all battling it out at the very end for territorial gain. And if you don't have the right probiotics, if you already have a dysbiosis, you already have an issue, there's a good chance that the bad guys are going to take over and run and reign. And in that circumstance, you can look up the strain. It's in the link below, and you can see for yourself which particular strain it is that causes that, and that is induced through the antibiotics that we ingest. And so the only way to really fix a dysbiosis created through antibiotics is through the application of probiotics. Antibiotics are what the name implies is basically it's anti-life, it's anti-cellular life on a single cellular level. The only way to heal from that is through probiotics, because in the colon itself, one out of 100 cells are human cells. 99 out of 100 cells are non-human cells. But a lot of people, they take this naturopathic approach, they change their diet and all these things, and that's a very healthy and helpful thing with certain things. But a lot of our so-called food allergies are actually a result of our dysbiosis. It's a result of certain species of fungi and bacteria that have taken precedent and taken hold in our gut that end up reacting in a certain way to prebiotic-like foods, which are a precursor to probiotic life forms in our gut. So these these bad bacteria are going to react to certain foods, like say tomatoes or onions or who knows what kind of food it is, any kind of thing. They'll react to it in some form or another, and if it threatens their dominance in the colon in any way, they're going to react and they're going to trigger a certain response and inflammation and release toxins and carcinogens in the body, and also all kinds of peptides and things to change what you want to eat, to change your cravings. And that a lot of people mistake for food allergies. They think, wow, I must have this food allergy, therefore I've got to very strictly follow this particular diet or this particular diet or this blood type based diet. When in reality, a lot of these reactions and a lot of these food allergies are actually due to dysbiosis. Just like in children and infants who are incapable of digesting lactose, who are lactose intolerant, or adults who are lactose intolerant, are often all that's going on most of the time is they're missing the lactobacillus and other probiotics that are capable of breaking down lactose through the enzymatic secretion of lactase that these guys release that end up breaking down the lactose. And so if you want to cure an infant or a baby from having lactose intolerance, one of the best ways is to feed that baby kefir and to give them a Kefir Retention Enema. You squirt a little bit of kefir inside the baby's bum. It's the healthiest possible thing you could ever do for a child or for a baby, and then suddenly they're colonized with all these probiotics that are capable of breaking down and releasing the enzymes necessary to help break down lactose, and that, by and large, will cure most people's lactose intolerance. So, and so there, that's the key is really recolonizing the gut with these probiotics that allow for a person to break down these foods. That's the key. So when it comes to kefir, like I was saying earlier, a lot of the probiotics we take it orally. It's broken down in the gut. A lot of the bile will kill many of the species, not all of them. Only a certain amount of them will make it through into the digestive system. That means there's going to be a lot of fucking battle because these bad guys and good guys, you're not storming it heavy enough. You want to really go through it and go through your body with as many probiotics as fast as you can, especially as diverse probiotics as you can get. As you'll read in that article below, you'll learn that these guys, they get a foothold and they're able to get a stranglehold. And when you already have a dysbiosis and you've had it for years even, there's this incredible amount of battle going on. So you really, really want to hit that as hard as you possibly can, as fast as you can, as soon as you can, before you even think of going to see a doctor or going to the hospital, because all they're going to do there is they're going to convince you that you have an autoimmune disease, you have Crohn's, you have colitis, it's permanent, there's nothing you can do, you have to take these drugs or get surgery and permanently mutilate your body and get rid of a huge chunk of what makes you human and then crap into a bag on the side of your gut for the rest of your life. That's basically the only solution that modern allopathic medicine has for these things. Occasionally you get some of these guys are blessed, they take certain drugs they're given and they have miraculous cures. I've read one account of that. The doctor prescribed her this anti-inflammatory. Her Crohn's her colitis went away, and somehow or another it just naturally passed. And she was one of the few and lucky where that happened. A lot of people aren't that lucky. Most of them, they take these drugs, they only go so far. They go in and out of remission for the rest of their lives. A lot of people then require surgery, or they think they do. That's the only solution the doctor knows, and that's what the doctors push. And if the person is not willing or capable of taking responsibility for their own health, they'd be very happy to put you under the knife. And I would argue putting a little, taking a kefir, an enema bag, filling it with kefir, and sticking this in the end of your bum is a lot healthier and will go a lot further and will do a lot more for you than sticking a knife into you and cutting you up and slicing you up and mutilating your body. And that's what a lot of these doctors suggest is the way to go. And people are, they're more afraid of the knife, or are they more afraid of sticking, an enema bag into their body and healing themselves permanently? Now that's that's the key, and that's the solution for healing of colitis, Crohn's, candida, irritable bowel, etc. That's one of the best ways you can do it. Now, obviously, for one of the main reasons, Crohn's is more in the small intestine, in the upper part of the body. Colitis is more in the large intestine, in the lower part of the body. Now, with colitis especially, if you're drinking kefir, it's only going to go so far. It's going to help, and you'll read many reports of people drinking kefir, and within a couple of days, their Crohn's, their colitis is basically going into remission, and they're feeling amazingly well. And many people as well, because they have colitis, if they're in a severe acute case of it and they're incapable of eating and their body is going into, they lose their appetite, they're not hungry, they're bleeding, they have all these other issues, and they're panicky, they're freaked out because their body is rejecting food. Well, what's happening in that regard is the body is trying to heal itself naturally through fasting. That's what the body does when it's sick. It will... just like you see in cats and dogs and birds and all sorts of species, when they get sick, the body knows how to heal itself naturally, and fasting is one of the surefire ways of healing, and that's one of the reasons that people can lose their appetite, and that's one of the main reasons why we lose our appetite when we're extremely sick or we have cancer or whatever. After the third day, your digestive system shuts down, and about 30% of your body's energy is then that was reserved just for creating enzymes and bile and the whole act of digestion and breaking down and assimilating food. That all goes into cleansing the body and removing all the toxins and all the waste that is found in our bodies. And you can heal from things that are scarcely believable to be healed from through a sufficiently long fast. And I've done fast. I've done close to 30 days. I think it was 23 days. I went just on water, and I ended up healing in ways that blew me away. It fixed everything in my body, from bone issues, knee issues, joint issues, skin, internal, external, all kinds of things. Scar tissue started going away. If you do a long enough fast, even scar tissue can completely disappear. Even I believe it's possible that stretch marks can be removed. If you get rid of all the fat, if you're willing to burn off all the fat in your body. And the body starts absorbing and using the nutrients stored in the fat to repair organs. And that's what happens after the first week or two, is your internal organs start being repaired by the fat tissues we have stored and accumulated in our bodies, and it clears all that out. And in the case of colitis, because there's this competition constantly for food and domination in the colon, by the body's going into this whole phase of a lack of interest in food, when your body is no longer hungry, you lose your appetite completely. What happens is your body is just trying to eliminate any vector for those bad bacteria to be able to thrive. But there's ways you can assist and help your body. Fasting can only go so far. Really, the main key is recolonizing your gut with probiotics, and you're not going to get that by not ingesting some kind of probiotic somehow, whether it be rectally or orally. But if you do have no appetite and you're going through incredible bout of acute colitis or Crohn's, the key is you want to do it rectally. Then you need to do these injection. You need to inject the kefir rectally through rectal infusions. You want to do retention enemas, kefir retention enemas, because by doing a kefir retention enema, you can bypass the whole problem of not having an appetite, So if you're not able to hold down food, if you're not able to consume or eat anything for a certain phase, you don't have to worry about that, because you can put it in the end that matters the most at that point. And the part of you that matters most with colitis is the large intestine. That's why they can remove that exclusively during surgery, and a person can recover quite well. And so you want to make sure you target that mainly. That's the main one, the main and most important thing. And if you're unable to eat, if your body's going into the fasting mode, you want to do that kefir enema as soon as possible. You want to get that ASAP. Do 2 cups, do up to a liter if you feel that is necessary. And I would do some yoga, headstand, suck your gut up under your stomach and try to kind of allow that liquid to go up and through and into the higher areas around the corner of your colon and everything like that. And you can basically do that laying on your back, putting your butt up in the air, and putting your shoulders down, and kind of holding your back up. You want to do that as soon as possible. And if you can help it, you also want to try and drink some. You want to try and drink a little bit, but the key is hitting it as heavy and as hard as possible. So if you're not able to drink and hold down anything at all, then you want to do it the other route. You want to go through the colon as fast and heavy as you possibly can. And if you are experiencing diarrhea, and it's very constant and blood and everything, all the more important for you to do a Kefir Retention Enema. You want the kefir in there no matter what. You want it in there even if you're bleeding. You want it in there even if you're can't hold anything down. You got the runs. You want that in there. And if you inject it in and then 20 minutes later it shoots out, you want to do another batch as soon as you can. You want to get there and you want to hit that over and over again. You want to get it as colonized as you possibly can, as quick as you possibly can, as soon as you can, and anything that gets ejected you want back in as soon as you can. You keep repeating that over and over for about as long as it takes, until the diarrhea is gone, and then until you're able to retain and hold it. And then when you can retain and hold it, you retain and hold at very least 2 cups, and let that stay in and don't let it out, because it will be absorbed and digested into your body. It will be brought in, and you'll get all the nutrients you need out of it. But you need to hit that heavy. I can't understate that or overstate that enough. You must take it whatever way works, and even if you can't hold anything down orally, drink it anyway. Do as much as you possibly can, because every little bit that you get into you is going to retake the grounds that have been destroyed or that are being taken over by these bad probiotics, or what, antibiotics. You can call them pretty much antibiotics. These species that are anti-life, they go through you and destroy your life, and they'll end up destroying their very host that's feeding them, and they'll end up dying too. Yeah, so make sure you do this as heavy and as hard, and even in cases that are, there's the doctor saying if you don't get surgery within a few days, you want to hit yourself as hard as you possibly can with probiotics over and over, no matter how much you're throwing up, no matter how much diarrhea you got. Get it in there and hold that on as long as you possibly can, and keep redoing it. If it comes out again, do it again. Do it over and over again. Even if you get diarrhea, just coating your colon with that stuff is going to do wonders for your intestines, wonders for you. So make sure you keep it in there as much. And in fact, on a certain level, a certain amount of diarrhea can actually be very, very helpful for certain phases. If you're drinking the kefir and you have drinking, let's say, a liter of kefir, and the kefir is just flowing and flooding through you incredibly rapidly, it's going to recolonize your whole body, and whatever's causing that diarrhea to begin with is going to go away very, 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 very quickly. Very quickly, because nothing can withstand the power of those kefir probiotics. Nothing can stop those guys from going in. And in fact, one of the methods I recommend for colonizing the body involves inducing a state of that kind of diarrhea-like symptoms in order to allow for the kefir to colonize the body very rapidly, and I'll get more into that soon. You can avoid that whole problem with lack of appetite. So, and you're also, with colitis in particular, you're hitting it right where it is the most problematic in the body, and that's why when people do surgery, they get rid of just the large intestine. They don't bother with the small intestine, although that will certainly be affected, and it has been affected by these same strains to some degree or another. But by and large, many people heal after they take out their large intestine, because that's where when they have colitis, because that's where all these parasites, bad bacteria, and all these things are residing. And so when you're doing a Kefir enema, you're getting it right in this exactly where you need to hit it the most. You're getting it right in the area of the work where the battle is taking place. Your body, can only do so much. In the worst case scenarios, it goes through and it starts fasting. And if you do a long enough fast, if you fast for 30 days, 60 days, there's a chance that you will actually go into complete remission and clear out all of that colitis. But that's a very long and painful and difficult thing, and it's somewhat limited. You want to make sure you bring in the probiotics. Often, the antibiotics we already brought in, we already brought those in, and they ended up just throwing everything out of whack and causing this huge, huge dysbiosis in our guts. And when that happens, you need something to be able to revert that and change that around and go back to a healthy and more balanced symbiosis in the gut. Okay, so there is an article that I read online, I searched online, and I was trying to find other people who had this. I've had my own personal issues with irritable bowel. I've had blood in my stool. I've had, as I was a kid, even as like when I was 13, 14 years old, I had a severe case of systemic candida for many, many, many years, and I tried everything. I spent 10 years changing my diet, doing all this research, taking probiotics, buying these little bottles of probiotics that we get in the store, in health food stores or wherever it may come from. I've tried so many different things. I tried cutting out all sugar, even honey. I tried cutting out basically all bread, wheat, gluten, fruit, period. I had absolutely like no sugar whatsoever for like at least a year and a half or two. I had cut out all of that, even on holidays, on my birthday. I had like the smallest amount, because if I had even just a little bit, if I had some ice cream, if I had some sugar, if I had some fruit, or honey, the candida would find a way to pull it out of my body, to get that sugar, those carbohydrates out of the body. Even antibiotics like honey, a lot of people will say, well, that's actually okay if you have candida. But candida, or systemic candida, spreads from the colon, and it goes through all the organs, and it goes through it can go into the liver, the lungs, all throughout the body, into the brain. It can spread around, like these mycelial filaments will go through and literally take over the body, and they'll go through and they'll actually absorb the sugars from the honey after the body has already broken the honey down into simpler sugars that are then, after that point, they don't bother candida. Like candida can handle that stuff because it's already broken down. Therefore, that's how a lot of this candida can thrive, no matter what you do. Like for me, it's like any carbs, any bread, nothing. If I had anything like that, it would cause a flare up, and I'd have a negative reaction. And this went on for years, and it didn't matter what I did. It really didn't. I tried everything, and I was drinking kefir. I was drinking store-bought kefir in these little packets that had maybe 10, 12 species of probiotic in there. And I was drinking gallons and gallons of this stuff. I was putting it on my milk. I was on my salad as a dressing. I was making my own salad dressing. I was eating that daily, and I ate that daily for months and years. It helped, but it didn't cure my problem. Even then, if I had any kind of like sugar or wheat or anything too much I would end up basically having these remissions, or I would have these problems showing up. So, I went on doing this for a very, very long time. I bought a book on candida and how to cure it, and it was just incredibly crazy how much information. It was like 300 to 400 pages of information, and there's so much information out there, and a lot of it, there's a lot of stuff out there that just kind of gets people going in circles. Now, a lot of it will work, and a lot of it will heal a person, but it'll take a long time, and it'll take a lot of effort. There's a lot of stuff out there that just doesn't know quite how to hit it on the head and cure it permanently, quickly, and efficiently. And for all of the ailments that I had mentioned so far in this video, diet is a huge one. Changing a person's diet, changing all these things. Well, that's important. You want to cut out unhealthy foods. You want to cut out as much pesticides and herbicides and fungicides as you can. You want to eat as organic as you can. You want to eat as healthy as you can. You want to cut out processed foods. You want to cut out. That's basically it. You want a clean, non-toxic diet and non-processed foods, and no excess of sugar. And maybe for me as well, even now after changing my diet, I'd say gluten or actually in particular phytase and phytic acid, which we find in wheat products, are enzyme inhibitors that basically inhibit our gut's ability to break down and digest other foods. It lines the colon, so like wheat will line the colon with this phytase and this phytic acid, and that will inhibit digestion, and the body has a difficult time breaking that down, because in the wheat germ, these are there to help it so that these products aren't broken down. It's so ungulates and other deer and other mammals can eat this wheat, and it'll come out the other end, and then it'll actually bypass digestion, and it'll grow in the grasses. And that's what this is designed to do. It's designed to keep wheat from being digested. And so when we eat these products, most wheat has this phytase and all that, and so it really can irritate the gut. It can cause people problems. It can cause dandruff in some people. It can cause irritable, just irritation in the gut in excess. The best kind of bread we can have, us, would be fermented bread, basically sourdough or sprouted wheat. You know, that's another way of doing it, because when you're sprouting it, the little germ starts growing for a little while, and then it absorbs all the phytase and phytic acid, breaks that down in and of itself, and then that wheat is very palatable and very easy to eat. So wheat, drum wheat, noodles, ravioli, any kind of any kind of gluten-based product is it. And I don't think it's the gluten itself; it's the phytic acid and the phytase that is the main issue. But it's something to look into a little bit further. But after doing what I'm going to recommend for you, you're going to be able to have wheat, you're going to be able to have rye, you're going to be able to have all these things in certain amounts. But you know, you don't want to go in excess. That's my experience. Pretty much anything with phytic acid and phytase is going to cause some amount of gastrointestinal issue in anyone and everyone, no matter what, pretty much. Some of us may have be more resilient, but for me, I can have a bit of wheat now and I don't have a problem. I can have sugar, I can have ice cream, I can eat whatever I want. I don't get the same problems that I used to, unless it's really processed, unless there's a lot of crappy food or a lot of pesticides and herbicides and fungicides in it that just throw the gut off. You know, I can eat pretty much anything. And before I had very limited, I had a very strict diet. It was basically salad, you know, and kefir milk that I ate for like a good year or more. And that's all I did. So, and then once I did the Kefir Enema, the retention enema, that cured my problem permanently, overnight, basically. And it was like, I could eat whatever I want. And my cravings went away overnight, literally. All of my bacteria, all the flora and fauna in the gut was colonized with these probiotics. And it changed my cravings, literally. So my whole diet changed overnight, not through hard effort and fighting and battling it out with these bad bacteria that want to have brain and that are trying to make you allergic to certain foods or releasing certain toxins and things to keep the prebiotics and the probiotics from getting a foothold. Instead of this big, long, strung out battle for me, by changing my diet and through force and through harsh, you know, measures and strict diet, incredible amount of willpower, you know, the kefir just reset it overnight, and it was like done, and that was it permanently. And it's not gone back since. I've not had any kind of remissions or issues ever since. That was it. That was it. You know, and the key is, like, some of the people I've talked to, yeah, you know, they'll say things like, well, food only goes in one way in me. It only goes here, it comes out the other end, and nothing goes in the other way. I'm not going to do it. Well, you know, it's like I said earlier, you have a choice. You might end up having to make a drastic choice eventually if you have severe acute colitis or ulceration of the colon in any way. You might have a choice between somebody sticking a knife inside of you and mutilating you and cutting out huge chunks of your body, or sticking the end of a enema bag into your body and just spending a few minutes holding that, you know, and holding that in, and that's it. And you're done. And you're cured. And you're not going to go back to the same problems that you had before. Okay? So there's a couple of things I'm going to mention here about probiotics that a lot of people that I've never seen mentioned anywhere. In fact, this is the first video I searched online for Kefir Retention Enema. There ain't anything on there. There's probiotic retention enemas. There's all kinds of stuff on probiotic retention enemas, but there's nothing on kefir in and of itself. So this is probably the first video on YouTube on it. And it is by far, this is the best method you can use for healing of all kinds of colon problems, okay? So, there is a method for healing colitis and all kinds of ulcerative diseases or colon problems, in particular when people are infested with the bacterial strain that is responsible for, often responsible for colitis, and it's basically it's caused by antibiotics by and large, you know, or it goes out of control from antibiotic use. And there is one method that people have tried and tested over the years, and it's very effective, and there's about an 85% recovery rate through fecal. It's a process known as fecal transplants. This is one method that people have used and can use. Going through official, like doctors and people who do this for, officially, not under the table kind of thing, they charge upwards of $10,000 for a single fecal transplant. The methods that I lay out here are, I believe, are probably just as, if not far more effective than any kind of fecal transplant you can get, for the mere fact that kefir itself has 36 to 56 different species of probiotics, and microbiotic diversity, biodiversity is the key, one of the main keys anyway. It is absolutely central to solving this problem and healing from this dysbiosis. And kefir rectal implants, rectal infusions, kefir retention enemas, I believe will have the exact same, if not better, effect than fecal transplants. Plus, you save $10,000. So, if you're instead of going an official route, you can spend $5 instead and get yourself a gallon of milk. So instead of a little tiny bunch of excrement that you paid $10,000 for, you can make unlimited amounts of kefir for as long as you want. It'll always be there, and you can make it whenever you want, however you want. And it works, and it does the same thing as any fecal transplant, but potentially better. I hypothesize. I'm not 100% sure, but I am certain that many species inside of the kefir strain tend to stick around for a very, very long time, if not indefinitely, if not for the rest of your life. Once those probiotics are in you, they stay in you. Once they create a balance, that balance tends to stick around. It's very hard to throw that off after. And I believe, though, that there are certain species, I hypothesize, there are certain species of probiotic in the kefir that end up they might not actually thrive in the colon environment, but they do benefit it for the short time that it's in there. And you won't find these in fecal transplants, thus. You will only find it in kefir itself. And with kefir, you get 36 to 56 species of probiotics right there, and they're all 3,000 years old. They've been passed on from hand to hand, generation to generation, unbroken, all the way back from the Caucasus, and they've been in contact with the air and the environment, with people's hands, and bacteria, fungi, viruses for so long that they basically have the same vigor you would find in a very, very healthy person who perhaps, say, for many generations has had very healthy probiotic bacteria passed on from mother to child. Well, with kefir, you can reset that entire generational and intergenerational dysbiosis by taking simply one single kefir enema, even 2 cups or a cup or two. You can make it in less than 24 hours. Insert that, recolonize yourself, and I believe we'll probably see somewhere upwards of 85% heal rate from almost all, if not every kind of colon disorder there is in existence, in just a matter of days, and it tends to be permanent, because once these guys get in there, they don't leave. So yeah, compared to fecal transplants, you get your own product. You can do it at home in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to find a donor for fecal matter. You don't have to spend $10,000 to do what you can do for free, basically, or for $5. You get your gallon, and you have that, and it's unlimited. You can make it and keep making more of it. You can make 10 gallons overnight if you really want to, and bathe in kefir if you feel like, and you'd still save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars if you filled your entire bathtub with kefir and just like bathed in it and laid in that for a few days. But not that I recommend that. It's a big waste of beautiful, beautiful milk. So anyway, but yeah, I just want you to look into that. There's an article here. I can just show you quickly. Bam. Okay, so how to make over $10,000 a year by selling your poop. I don't recommend that. I recommend you tell people how to take kefir instead, so you don't have to swindle them of their hard-earned money, because that's all this largely is. Now they say C. difficile infection is basically,
is basically what causes colitis, antibiotic-associated colitis. It's an inflammation of the intestine that sometimes occurs following antibiotic treatment and caused by toxins produced by the bacterium Clostridium difficile, or however the heck you pronounce that. And they say here, the treatment with fecal microbiota transplantation is proven to be very successful in patients, cures over 85% of patients after their first experience. Okay, so I don't recommend you go that route. I recommend you save your money and really give this a shot first and foremost, and see what happens. See how it treats you. Do this for a few weeks, and I pretty much believe, for the vast majority of you, after 2 cups, the first 2 cups retained, withheld until it's been completely absorbed, you're going to find a mind-blowing success rate. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 95, 90-something% up on the first treatment. But you want to keep doing that anyway. You want to keep doing that. But don't take my word for it. Try it yourself and see what works for you. Sometimes things are different for different people. But you can do fecal transplants, you can do Kefir Retention Enemas, and you can do Kefir grain implants as well, which is basically just using the grains solely as the source of probiotic rectally and through rectal infusions. But that takes and requires a lot of grains, and I recommend doing milk first. Just try this and see. You have nothing to lose in doing this and a lot to gain. So when you go to the store and you buy probiotics, you can get these little bottles. Often, and sometimes they cost upwards of $60, $70 for a single bottle that lasts only 30 days. And there's only so many probiotics in there. They're generally limited to maybe between 10 and 17, if you're lucky, different strains, okay? And they're all created. We got to recognize and realize that all of these probiotics that you get from the store, that you get from the health food stores, they're all made in sterile lab conditions somewhere where they have to follow strict guidelines, and they have to have everything done in order to keep contamination from getting in, because we're dealing with bacteria, we're dealing with microbiotics, we're dealing with fungi, we're dealing with things that if they're not what they say they are, if I'm not selling you what I tell you I'm selling you, I can get in big trouble. And somebody out there may be very, very happy to get very, very wealthy of suing somebody for a contaminated product, for selling something that contained something it wasn't supposed to. So there's understandably on certain levels, there's very good reason why there are certain rules and regulations and why they produce probiotics the way they do, by and large. However, these probiotics are created in such sterile lab conditions that they never really have any kind of ability to compete in nature or the natural evolutionary path, because they're always in these sterile little bottles. They're in the sterile lab, in vitro, in these dishes with air filtrations, and they have to keep these places incredibly clean, and therefore there's no competition, and therefore these bacteria don't know really how to fight. And therefore, they might help when you start taking them, but they are not trained and well-versed in that kind of environment that has already been maybe rooted and taken control of since your birth. If you were born with cradle cap and you had candida on the top of your skull that was going through and into your cerebral spinal fluid and the soft spot on the top of your head and your brain, controlling your cravings from the time you were born, compromising your immune system from the time you were a fetus, that will stay with you for the rest of your life to some degree. Unless you're doing what I'm describing, you can literally overcome even that. But so with most people, they're taking these probiotics to try to fight something that may have been with you since you were born. These probiotics that have never had any interaction with the environment, never had to compete, never had anything until it finally hit you. Whereas probiotics such as Kefir, for example, have been around for 3,000 years. And they've been passed on from hand to hand. They've survived being held in people's hands. You'll often see videos of people on YouTube making Kefir, and we're washing them under the sink to clean them off with our bare hands. They're in contact with the air. Of course, we do wash our hands before using them, just to be careful, because we don't want to overdo it.
but they're in contact with the environment, they're in contact with the air, they have to fight to survive, and they do, and they become incredibly powerful, and that is why they have survived for 3,000 years, and that is why kefir is the most powerful probiotic there is on the face of this earth. Okay, so, and the other thing about kefir, unlike, say, yeah, you could do lacto-fermented cabbage and kimchi and homemade stuff, which are all based on just the probiotics that are in your environment already, that have all been evolving for as long as imaginable. But there's only so many species that will survive in these very acidic, lactic acid-filled environments. So, and there's only generally a handful of species. There might be a few of them. But when you're looking at kefir, you've got 36 to 56 different species of probiotic right there in one system that has been around for 3,000 years. The other thing that's going on with these probiotics is well, they're very expensive. So you can spend, you could go to the health food store and spend $60, $100 a month on just bottle after bottle, for just a small bottle like that size. Whereas you could go and buy a gallon of milk and make a gallon of milk like that size worth of probiotics for $5, for literally just the cost of the milk itself. And the kefir grains keep growing, they keep multiplying, they never stop, they keep on expanding and growing, and you'll never run out of them as long as you take good care of them and feed them. They'll take good care of you, and they will do amazing things. And if you read up on that article again, you'll learn that probiotics will produce precursors to serotonin. They'll produce tryptophan and all kinds of real feel-good chemicals and things in the body that allows you to feel really good. There's certain species of bad bacteria that will actually make you feel like crap. They'll make you feel really horrible. There's certain species of bacteria that are specific to mice that will, when they infect the mice, they make the mice fearless around cats. They make the mice aroused by cat urine. So that's how this bacteria ends up propagating, is it gets infected, it suddenly becomes sexually aroused by cat urine, and it loses its evolutionary biologically imprinted fear of mice, the smell of mice. So suddenly they're just fearless, and they'll go up, the cat will eat them, that bacteria gets passed on, it goes on, the cycle continues, the cat, the excrement will have that bacteria, and that's how that one particular species of bad bacteria propagates. Now there's millions, and we don't understand how all of them work, but there's certain species that control our thinking and our behavior and our diet, what we want and what we want to eat through the vagus nerve that is connected through the spinal cord in the stomach. And they found that if you sever that vagus nerve, suddenly people are losing weight, and it's changing the whole probiotic composition of the body. They're showing that in, oh gosh, you have to read that article because it is mind-blowing and mind-bending, an amazing thing. They're even suggesting in there that obese people, if they're hanging around other normal healthy people, if they're really close, that those normal healthy people may end up becoming obese because they end up, through sharing a bottle or kissing or something like that, they might end up taking on the bacterial colonies that are colonizing that person, and they'll end up going through and making that person gain weight, because the way that the body retains fat and breaks down all these fats and different things is altered by these bacteria.
So here's another interesting thing that must be mentioned. Despite the negative effects on health and survival, unhealthy eating patterns are often difficult to change. The resistance to change is frequently framed as a matter of self-control. And it has been suggested that multiple selves or cognitive modules exists, each vying for control over our eating behavior. Here we suggest another possibility, that evolutionary conflict between host and microbes in the gut leads microbes to divergent interests over host eating behavior. Gut microbes may manipulate the host eating behavior in ways that promote their fitness at the expense of the host's fitness. Others have hypothesized that microbes may be affecting our eating behavior, though not in the context of competing fitness and interests of an evolutionary conflict. Well, changing microbiota composition will change eating behavior. So if you change your gut flora, you're going to suddenly have a change in your cravings. So like animals with a microbe that specializes in a nutrient requirement such as seaweed would lead to preferences of that novel food. So if you had that microbe in your gut, you're going to suddenly crave seaweed. But I don't know why, but that's why. A consistent diet will select for microbial specialists and lead to preference for those foods. So Kefir Retention Enema is like resets everything to something much more natural. This is the article here. So, is eating behavior manipulated by gastrointestinal microbiota, evolutionary pressures, and potential mechanisms? This is a very important article, and I recommend you all read this through and through. But it says here, you know, that they're under selective pressure to manipulate the host's eating behavior to increase their fitness, sometimes at the expense of the host's fitness. Microbes may do this through two potential strategies: generating cravings for food that they specialize on, or foods that suppress their competitors. So that's where a lot of this food allergy stuff comes from. They create cravings for foods that make them feel good, and they create bad feelings for foods that end up suppressing their competitors. Or, you know what I'm saying? So like if there's a food in you that is helping the good guy, the bad guys are going to try and create some reaction in you to make you think that you shouldn't be eating that. And that's how a lot of food allergies are in this world. They're not really food allergies. They are dysbiosis and are, you know, basically our ignorance or pure ignorance and lack of understanding or willingness to understand all this stuff will play a role in that. But it's happening whether we're aware of it or not. Because microbiota are easily manipulatable by prebiotics, probiotics, antibiotics, fecal transplants, and dietary changes, altering our microbiota offers a tractable approach to otherwise intractable problems for obesity and unhealthy eating and our cravings, etc. And this is what they're really suggesting in here, is that even people who hang out together, food preferences may be contagious. One intriguing implication of microbially induced cravings is that preferences for certain foods may be contagious. Both the fecal and oral microbiota are more similar among cohabiting family members compared to non-cohabiting individuals. If the food preferences of one person in the household influence the food consumption of the household, any specialist gut microbes adapted to that diet would then tend to flourish in that household members. Even worse, the obesity epidemic could be contagious as a result of obesity-causing microbes transmitted from person to person. A social network study of 12,000 people found that a person's chance of becoming obese increased 57% if a friend had become obese. This raises up the possibility that cravings and associated obesity might not be socially contagious, as the authors of the social network suggest, but rather truly infectious, like the cold. This proposition could be tested experimentally, selecting for a microbe that generates particular food preference in animals, as above. As others have proposed, if food preferences are contagious, then co-housing those manipulated animals with germ-free animals should lead to transmission of food preference. Okay? Alternate hypothesis for unhealthy eating and obesity. So even, okay, and then if we look up nurses here, 12,000. Yogurt was the food most associated with reduced weight loss gain in a study that monitored the diet and health of 120,000 nurses over 10 to 20 years. They found that the addition of probiotics to the diet tends to decrease food intake, consistent with the hypothesis that greater gut diversity may limit microbiological control over eating behavior. Some lactobacillus products have reported to reduce fat mass and improve insulin sensitivity and glucose tolerance in those, although these effects are not universally reported for all lactobacillus species. So there's certain species can do that and others don't. So Bifidobacterium bereave inhibited weight gain in mice given a high-fat diet in a dose-dependent manner. And at the same time, they find the same dose, the same mice who are eating the same fat, if they don't have those probiotics, they gain more weight. So the probiotics are controlling the way how much fat they're even getting from their food. Several studies suggest a role for probiotics in weight loss in humans. In one trial, probiotic yogurt produced a weight loss that was not due to change in energy intake or exercise. So these probiotics are changing the way fat's stored on your own body. Similarly, yogurt was the food most associated with reduced gain weight in a study that monitored the diet and health of 120,000 nurses. So the fatty, yogurt's like filled with fat, you'd think. It's thick and creamy and rich, and yet it is responsible and associated with weight loss, with reduced weight gain over 120,000 nurses over 10 to 20 or 12 to 20 years. That's amazing. So that shows you that it's our yogurt and our probiotics that really play a huge role. I mean, far more non-human cells in us than human cells. They play a larger role in digestion than even our own body. See here, did you know that our gut microbiome needs a good supply of magnesium in order to do their jobs properly? Beneficial gut bacteria are extremely important to good health. Did you know we rely on our gut microbiome than we do our own cells and enzymes for digestion of food and nutrient absorption? Wild. Did you know that we rely on our own gut biome more than our own cells and enzymes for digestion of food and food absorption and nutrient absorption? That means that we need healthy symbiosis in that gut, or else you're going to get these other issues. If digestion is compromised, we can be shortchanged on magnesium uptake, and that's people with Crohn's and people with similar issues have magnesium deficiency. Oh, yeah, it is. Magnesium deficiency is not especially common, but occurs with patients with intestinal diseases such as Crohn's disease. Colitis and all that is the same thing. So, I mean, magnesium is very, very important for people who take that. Now, I'm going to go into more on that later, on how magnesium is incredibly important for digestion, especially people with Crohn's and all this, because, magnesium is responsible for over 800 enzymatic reactions and in the body. And what are enzymes? They're there to basically break down our food. So if we're not able to break down our food, then what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to eat. And one of the newer, more scientifically inclined magpies recently declared that our benefactor magnesium is involved in 700 to 800 enzymatic reactions, more than doubling the often quoted internet babble that magnesium is involved in 300, and it's probably even more than that. So, I mean, science is always trying to keep up with everything here, and so, we got to keep it in mind. Anyways, so we're continuing on. So I added this in later, and here we go. And there's certain species of, there's a study done with 120,000 nurses around the world. They found that the one food that reduced weight gain more than anything that of all the food that they can possibly eat is yogurt. That yogurt, actually, this fatty food, causes more weight loss than anything because of the probiotics, and it changed the way the body assimilates fat. You take a perfectly healthy mouse that is not obese, that has never been introduced to any kind of germs or any kind of bugs. They were sterile from the time they were born. They very carefully sterilized them, kept them in a sterile condition. They, they live fine, they eat fine, everything's great. Then they take some excrement from a fat, obese mouse. They feed it to the good mouse somehow. I don't know how they managed to get them to eat it, but they did. And suddenly this once healthy mouse is demonstrating how it starts getting fat. It starts gaining weight and all these issues that the other mice had a problem with. This mouse then inherits. And this can go on from generation to generation, mother to child, forever. That kind of thing can happen. And so we can hit the reset button. There is a reset button. There's a way of doing this that can completely change this and reset you in a way that will fill you with the most healthy, the most vital, the most powerful probiotics that exist on the face of this earth.
So in one of the articles I'll link below, How I Cured My Colitis in 7 Days, I think is the name of the article. One particular gentleman, came up with one of the most innovative and wild ways of doing it. Now, he ended up taking kefir grains and using kefir grain implants in his colon, in his large colon, for curing his colitis, which ended up curing and reversing it permanently after about 7 days. So that's his take on things. And I recommend you read that, and I recommend that you do with it as you like. But my personal suggestion to you is going to be slightly different, actually a lot simpler and a lot more easy and cheaper and just way. I'm going to simplify this process down to something that is so easy anyone can do it, and it's, you know, it doesn't cost anything pretty much. It's almost free, and it's permanent. It should be permanent anyway. And if there is, if you have to, if you must, there is that article which explains to you how to do this kefir grain implant. And this guy basically used kefir grains. He blends them in a blender into a liquid form, blends it with aloe vera and various other herbs and things to help to reduce swelling in the colon and all that due to the ulcerations. And it's a very thorough and a very, very wise and a very beautiful and a very sophisticated and just, well, it's actually quite simple, but it's very holistic and just a beautiful and wild way of doing it. One of the main things he uses is, and the only thing he eats, and he recommends eating for 7 days is, or 7 to 10 days, I guess, is just brown rice or rice in general. He even goes straight down to this particular strain of long or short brown rice. You know, he has such a very delicate and very holistic, very, very well thought out program. Okay, that I guarantee you, it doesn't matter whether you have colitis or Crohn's disease. This will do the same thing for you. Basically, it will heal you in 7 days or so. So there, you know, it will take some time, but basically, once you've got the good guys in there, and once you've got the probiotics you need taken root, that's it. It's done. And that's what happened to me. I had a lifetime worth of candida. I did 2 cups or so of probiotic in a enema bag, like such. Okay, I had done that. I did it once after years of drinking it and doing orally and everything. Did it once. And what happened was I had the most incredible flatulence that I've ever had in my life. For about 36 hours, 24 hours, I had this gas that was just unbelievable. It was showing me that I was transforming inside my gut in a very rapid way, and a huge transformation going on. My gut was just burbling, and things were moving around, and I had this flatulence that was just wild, and it didn't stink or anything. It was like sweet and clean, and my body was just saying thank you, thank you. And it was just this massive transformation that took place in just a very short period of time. And that was that I did maybe 7-8 years ago. And ever since then, every time I've done another retention enema with kefir, I've never had that same result. I never had that kind of reaction. That tells me that whatever I did the first time was permanent. It was literally permanent, and that was it. I did it once. That's it. It was done. And it stayed that way. And no matter what I do, no matter what kefir I drink or whatever I do, it doesn't get that intense because I've already killed off basically everything that needed to be killed off. I already destroyed all of the bad bacteria. I already had recolonized myself in such a manner that I can do a cup or two now, and it's just, I don't get any reaction at all. It's just like my body saying thank you. You know, it does help. It does help if I occasionally imbibe a little bit with excessive sugar on holidays and family get-togethers. It will, you know, your gut flora will naturally change depending on your diet. Constantly, it's fluctuating depending on what you eat. So if you find yourself straying too far and feeling a little ill, a little too much alcohol, a little too much sugar, a little too much wheat, a little too much whatever, a Kefir Retention Enema will help reset you and help you bring you back into that alignment much quicker than you would otherwise. It's just like hitting reset, and that's it, and it's done. It's like done literally that quickly. That's why I personally think, I wouldn't be surprised if a person with severe ulcerative colitis acute ulcerative colitis could completely reverse that through a single Kefir enema with, say, 2 cups to a liter in just one go, even just 2 cups in just one go. And that's all they did, and they wait a week to see what happened. I'm pretty sure all the problems they had with them would be healed. But there's also the small intestine is likely to have suffered from some amount of dysbiosis, maybe not to the degree the large intestine had, but when you take those antibiotics or when you're sick, usually that the large intestine is just a symptom of other dysbiosis that can be going on in your body elsewhere. So it's very important to go both ends. So what I would recommend, and this is my protocol, would be this for anyone who suffers from IBS, candida. If it's just candida, 2 cups, experiment with that. Just try 2 cups. See how you feel within a couple of days, and monitor it very closely. If you have severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, and you're in acute stage, you're about to go to the hospital, you don't know what to do, you're worried about getting sick. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation and lies and just self-deception and that lack of understanding, lack of clarity and understanding in allopathic medicine when it comes to the colitis. Most of the time, it's the doctors who gave you your antibiotics that ended up throwing you off, that ended up causing the problem that they're going to try to solve by slicing you up under the table. That's what they think. That's what they recommended. That's what I know. Somebody close in my family just happened to them. And when it is a completely reversible and curable thing that can be done so easily without any invasive anything. I mean, sticking an enema tip inside your colon is a lot less invasive than a knife, permanently disfiguring and mutilating your body permanently so you're shitting out of a bag on the side of your body. That's not necessary. It is unnecessary. The way to cure it, unless, of course, that's the only choice that you feel and you're going to go that route, that's your choice. You can go that route and you can permanently disfigure yourself. That's your choice. I'm going to argue and suggest to do everything you possibly can to avoid that situation. And the only way you can the best way you can do that is through Kefir Retention Enema, because you're hitting it right on the spot, right where it needs it the most, okay? And it needs it heavy and it needs it hard. Like I was saying earlier, you're taking gently, you're drinking it down, and you have like the worst freaking dysbiosis you could imagine in your body. And you're just gently drinking kefir very slowly, thinking, well, I'm going to be gentle on myself. All you're doing is you're giving the bad bacteria time to adjust, because they're in there trying to compete and find a way around it. So the key is, if you really want to heal, and you really want to heal quick, you got to hit it hard, you got to hit it heavy, and you got to hit it quick, and you got to hit it before you even think about going to the doctors. You got to hit it, yourself, and you got to get kefir, and you can do that. Now, I recommend traditional kefir, because, like I say, there's 36 to 56 different species of probiotic in kefir, and the key to a healthy gut is in biodiversity. They find that in people with Crohn's and all kinds of gastrointestinal problems, the issues arise when there's a lack of quantity. There's something that takes over, and there is no symbiosis. There's no multitude of bacteria. There's only 1 or 2 species that take over, and they end up causing all these problems. The key to that is through biodiversity, through the ingestion of microbiota, and the kefir has the largest biodiversity of any probiotic there are on this planet. 36 to 56 species. That's huge. It's better than anything you can get in the store or anything anywhere. If you can't get your hands on in the time you would like on traditional grains, you can order the traditional grains on eBay, on many websites online. That can take a few days. But most superstores do sell kefir in some form or another. And I'd recommend you get on that as fast as you can. You can even take some of that kefir from one container kefir, even if it's fruit flavored, don't matter. If it says there's 10 species of probiotic there, you can take that and you can put a teaspoon of it into a gallon of fresh milk, preferably raw. If you can get raw, all the better. Goat milk is great too. Goat milk may even be better. Goat milk will bring you up and enhance your mood and make you feel so good. It's so full of nutrients. It's unbelievable, even better than cow's milk. But you can take a teaspoon of kefir from a store-bought source, add it to a gallon of fresh milk, seal it up, shake it up, put it on top of your fridge, leave it for 24 hours. Within 24 hours, you're going to have kefir. You're going to have the same kefir that you had there in a much larger quantity. And you can do that with 4 gallons, 5 gallons, however much you want, if you want to really go friggin' hard on it. Just bear in mind the store-bought kefir has usually and generally far less microbiological diversity. So you want to get your hands on good quality kefir. You want to get, I just ordered on eBay, it was like $1 or $2, and it came in a week. I had it, it was done. Get on it ASAP, soon as you can. You know, I'm saying that only because I know some of you are in acute situations. You're in situations where the doctors may be saying to you, well, your only solution is surgery and taking this drugs and that drugs or whatever. And they're going to lead you down that path, and you have to make a choice, and you have to think, you have to be willing to think for yourself and be your own doctor, or they're going to just dice you, they're going to slice you up in pieces. And that's your choice. It's your choice. But if you want to heal, and completely reverse the situation and completely do it naturally, this is the best way of doing it. You're not going to find a better way. You can change your diet. You can do all that. It'll work. A lot of these things will work. A lot of these things, you can take probiotics. You can eat lacto-fermented vegetables. All that will help big time. But if you want to cure yourself in just a couple of days to a week, if you want to heal yourself as fast as possible and get those antibiotics, dysbiosis out of there, and you want to cure that colitis and all of these issues, as soon as you have to hit it hard, and you have to hit it heavy, and you have to hit it right in the gut. You have to do Kefir enema. You have to be willing, instead of sticking a knife inside your butt, you have to be willing to stick a enema tip, and that's all. Okay, that's it, and it's really simple and it's really easy. So, and making kefir, you can look that up on YouTube. It's very simple. It's very easy. You get the grains, you put them into milk. Within 24 hours, you get however many, whatever you created. Like you could do a gallon, you could do a cup or a quart. I usually do a quart at a time with grains. And then if I want to really mega dose, I'll take a quarter teaspoon or half a teaspoon of fresh kefir and just use that. I can pour that into a plastic jug, a gallon of milk. So I take some freshly made kefir. I ignore the grains. I just take kefir itself, pour it into a gallon of milk, shake it up, leave it 24 hours. The next day, you're going to have just as good quality kefir as you did with the grains. But you're not going to have the grains. You're not going to have to worry about filtering them or whatever. You're just going to have that kefir, and you're speeding up the process here a little bit too, so that you can make more, drink more, and get more in you as quick as you can. And that's the key to really getting over any form of irritable anything in the bowel. But as soon as you do a Kefir Retention Enema, that's it. You've permanently recolonized your colon. These guys are there. They're not going anywhere. They end up sticking with you, and they'll stick with you for life. I recommend this same thing like for infants.
Now, this particular disease is called infantile necrotic bowel syndrome, and it's apparently curable. Necrotic bowel syndrome, let me see if I can bring this up for you, is known medically as necrotizing enterocolitis. It is a serious condition characterized by the death of gastrointestinal tissue. It is mainly found in sick infants or babies born prematurely. It is incredibly serious and life-threatening. And according to Medline Plus, the mortality rate of those with this condition is near 25%. Thankfully, it is a treatable condition, and the treatment, they say, and they don't know why it's caused. It's caused by bad bacteria. That's probably the main cause. It's some kind of dysbiosis that's taken place in the child while in the mother's womb. Possibly the mother had perhaps, say, some form of bad bacteria in her gut or in her colon. She had this bad bacteria and it's passed on from mother to child. That's the most likely cause, or some kind of bacterial infection in the womb. If she got a yeast infection or something similar during, that might cause that. The first step in treatment is to discontinue all feedings, followed by an insertion tube through the nose or stomach to drain any accumulation or fluid around in the intestines and stomach. Once the treatment is put into place, the infant will need regular monitoring to ensure the condition is healing. They also give them antibiotics. So in severe cases, surgery to remove the infected parts of the bowel may be necessary. Sounds just like colitis in normal people now. And they give them antibiotics. So they give them the scorched earth approach there as well. They don't give them probiotics. That is the one thing that you can give them that will actually recolonize that colon with good bacteria Whereas what they're doing is they're just killing everything, and they're not replacing it with anything good. They're just killing everything, and they're hoping and bargaining maybe you'll survive it. But the chances for survival will increase drastically if they end up using the recommendations that I've basically shared with you. Kefir retention enema in the infant as well. It could significantly increase the infant's chances of mortality by drinking kefir orally and or getting it rectally or having it fed through a drip tube directly into the child's stomach.
There's a lot of people who get like necrosis of the colon or something, of the large intestine, where in the infant they get basically colitis at birth, and often they require surgery, and often they die because of this. If they only knew, they could have done kefir enema, would heal that. It would heal that. Okay, a kefir retention enema will save that baby's life. Another thing that can save a baby's life is through the act of doing and performing juices with kefir prior to any plans to get pregnant. And also, I would recommend kefir retention enemas, because I mean the vagina and the anus, they're right there, they're side by side, they're going to colonize each other. It's all connected there. It's totally connected. So what you want to do is you want to do a kefir enema and at the same time a douche if you're female, and that will basically cure any kind of yeast infection very, very quickly and very rapidly. It'll basically kill it immediately. There's nothing that will be able to survive that. With traditional kefir, will knock it right out. But you want to do the colon and the vagina, and what will happen is that will prevent any kind of cradle cap, fungal infection in the womb and during pregnancy, where the baby ends up contracting any kind of disease in the womb. And that's basically what I am suggesting here. It'd be a very, very, very good thing for pregnant women to consider, or prior to pregnancy. It might be safe. It probably is safe to have a little kefir in you while you're pregnant as well. But prevention is the best medicine. So try and do that before you get pregnant. And I had cradle cap when I was born. I had some amount of candida issues, and then I suffered with candida for the rest of my life. It was exacerbated after I took antibiotics the doctor gave me. I misused them, and I took them. I went off them for a couple days, went back on them, and then I suddenly got this urethra infection, pain when I went to the bathroom, and then my candida struck me, and I had all these food allergies, and it spiraled out of control. And the only thing that eventually healed me was the proper use of probiotics, or the most powerful use of probiotics, which is using a retention enema. Now, people are willing to get what do they call them? Fecal transplants, where they take the excrement of a healthy human being and they transplant that and they put it into the colon of a unhealthy human being. Very similar to how that rat, I was just talking about with the mice. They fed this healthy mice this unhealthy rat shit, and then within a few months that mouse exhibited all the signs of obesity and all these issues. Okay, now you can do the same thing with a healthy person. You can take their excrement, put it in you, and there's programs out there, there's doctors who do it. It's a huge thing, and it goes on, and people are willing to do that. Now, I mean, with kefir, you don't have to worry about taking someone else's excrement and put it in your body, which is a little bit disconcerting for some of us. But if it means that, or surgery and removing your dicing your body up and mutilating yourself permanently and shitting out of the bag for the rest of your life, or fecal transplant, I think most people would be sane enough and mindful enough and care enough about themselves to do that. But even better is kefir. Kefir will do that and even more, because even in a healthy person, there's going to be some amount of bad bacteria. There's going to be just a little bit, maybe. It's not going to be perfect, and it's not a pretty thing. It's not a lovely idea. I wouldn't want to do it. What I'd recommend personally, and this is my opinion, is doing a kefir enema, because you're going to get even more probiotics. You're getting them raw, you're getting them fresh, you're getting them right there, and you're resetting yourself so that you don't have to do all these measures that are pretty extreme. And you don't have to go out and find somebody who's healthy and doing all that, or a doctor who prescribes these kind of treatments. You can do it yourself. You can do it yourself in the comfort of your own home for almost nothing, for almost next to nothing. It's basically free. Okay. Now, in that article, the guy who cured his colitis in 7 days using Kefir implants permanently, by the way, and he had never seen a remission after that. He had not seen any remissions after that using Kefir grain implants. Now, if you want to do Kefir grain implants, you're going to have to buy all of this Kefir grains or mass produce them, or have them already produced. That can cost a lot of money. You're taking the grains themselves. That's beautiful. Apparently, there's an anti-inflammatory property to them, but so is in Kefir milk. That's why I recommend you try my protocol. And basically, you don't have to bother then constantly getting your hands on more grains or making more of them. That's time consuming and costs money. If you have to, though, in the end, if you feel like you need to or you want to try that, that's there for you. You can do that if you choose. But and the other thing that they mentioned in that article is basically they put a person on a diet where for 7 days you only eat rice. Okay, for 7 days you only eat rice. And the primary reason why they suggest rice is because they say it helps the body do detox. Number one, it acts as like an absorbent for the toxins in the colon and help pull all that out. That's one of the reasons. The secondary reason from what I recall from there, was the secondary reason that they use it was because it induces a state of fasting. By just having rice, it's almost like you're not eating anything, they claim. Well, I don't think that's actually not entirely true. By eating anything, even touching your tongue on your finger on your tongue where there's salt there, you're stimulating your digestive system. You're creating enzymes. Your body's reacting just to the salt. A real true fast, it can only be done through not ingesting any food whatsoever, just through water. That's the best way to fast. And that's the most powerful way, and that's the way that can heal most anything. I'll include an article below that goes into detail on that, and you can learn more about that yourselves. The one that I used, it's the one I used for doing a 23-day fast. Okay. But what I'd recommend in place of the rice would be bentonite clay. Okay. Now I get bentonite granules very inexpensively. I spend maybe $8 a year on them. This is bentonite. This is designed for wineries. They for clarifying the wine. I can go to the local winery, or the local U-brew they call it, which is just basically they help the local wineries order in various materials for their vineyards, for their winemaking, or alcohol if you're making homemade alcohol. They provide you with all of the bacterial cultures and the jars and all these things that you need for that, and all kinds of stuff. And this is one of the things they have there. It is definitely food grade. It is used in wine that is needed for ingestion, but because I get it from these guys, I save a lot of money. So I got a kilogram of bentonite for maybe $8 Canadian. That's like $6.50, $6 US, and that lasts me 6 months to a year. You're going to be spending a lot more, $30, $40, $50 for the same amount if you're getting it elsewhere. But if you want to save some money, I recommend check out your local winery, U-brew-like outfits where they sell winemaking equipment, and find out if they have any bentonite clay in stock, and you can get it in bulk for much cheaper than you can find it online. Generally speaking, I searched on eBay. It's usually I'm looking for $20, $30, $40 for the same amount. But if you have no choice, you do what you got to do. Okay, you get that bentonite clay. Now, bentonite clay, how this will help in the process of healing is it is one of the most gentle and natural ways for detoxing the body. I've heard, I'm going to go into the story a little bit. I'll go into a few stories about how powerful bentonite really is. Bentonite is basically activated charcoal. It's pretty much the same thing, except it's loaded with minerals that you won't find in charcoal. It's the same process. So when you making activated charcoal that doctors use in hospitals for cleansing and detoxifying people of poisons and near-death poisonings and things like that, really what's going on is they take coals from various species, and often it's like cherry wood. Coconut husk as well is often used in making activated charcoal, and the reason why is because of the structure of the grains and the way that the actual fiber of the plant works is very dense, and it makes for a much more porous surface area when it's treated with water. And what they do then is they take these coals, and then to make it activated, they have to spray the charcoal with hot water at about 1,000 degree temperature steam. So 1,000 degree steam hits the coals, the charcoals, and then it creates this massive surface area that then attracts positively charged ions, I should say, and it works the same, I guess, in the body. You put it in your body uses it as a storage unit, as almost like an extra organ of elimination. It's almost like you suddenly got a new organ of elimination introduced into your body. And I'm just saying that for a reason you'll understand more soon. But basically, that your body knows very, very well, I can push stuff into that, and then that thing in and of itself goes through you, and it doesn't secrete anything, it doesn't cause you anything, it doesn't release any toxins or negative symptoms or any problems for the body. It's the opposite. Your body takes all the junk that it can't deal with, and it forces it into the activated charcoal, and then that passes through you unimpeded through your digestive system, and it comes out the other end, and you're detoxified, you're cleansed of all kinds of crap. Now, bentonite clay is created on very similar principles, except bentonite clay is created in the earth. Very similar. It's created when volcanic ash comes up through hydrothermal vents in the ocean and or in freshwater locations, and comes into contact at least 1,000 degrees with the water. So when it hits the water, all the steam kind of action taking place, all this superheated ash hitting this cold water creates the steam in a very similar way that you get when you're trying to create activated charcoal. So it's basically the same thing. The only difference is bentonite is like it's like basically it is volcanic ash, and it is from the core of the earth or the mantle, and it is basically pure mineral content. So your body is also getting some amount of minerals that it may not be able to assimilate or get as much from the food you're eating and things like that. But one of the main purposes and reasons why bentonite is highly recommended, now if you do some research online, you can find this out for yourself. You just got to look up bentonite clay and colitis or Crohn's or whatever. And the reason why it helps is because one of the main channels of elimination in your body is already under severe attack. It is already toxic. It is already being constantly bombarded with toxins and carcinogens and positively charged ions, from which are not good for you. Negatively charged ions are fine for the body, but positively charged ions are generally toxins, viruses, parasites, things like that. Okay, so when you're taking this bentonite, your body is already stressed. It's trying very hard to eliminate whatever's going on in there. You're getting these sort of like autoimmune reactions because of the toxic environment. Your body is seeing all these bad bacteria releasing all this stuff to just confuse your immune system, or try its best to, and mess you up so it can get an upper hand and take over and control your food, to try to get an upper hand. And then, so what happens is your colon is no longer very effective at releasing toxins. It becomes a storehouse for toxic waste. And all these extra toxins and burdens that are being released by these bacteria and fungi and parasites, whatever, that's in there, so your body is having a very difficult time. So it ends up, to get rid of that, so that ends up being stored in the tissues, and that causes inflammation, and that's one of the main causes of all this inflammation that's going on there. And basically, what this bentonite will do, it'll act as a super cleansing agent that your body, your intestines can push all of this toxic waste that is being accumulated in the colon into that clay, so that it's no longer having to hold that burden, and it acts like a magnet. So when that clay comes in direct contact with the colitis and the ulcerations, your body just pushes all of this toxic waste that locks into the clay itself. So the clay itself becomes like bound up with this stuff, where it's no longer being released because of the electrical charges and the way that the clay works. It cannot come back into your body. It cannot come back into the body. The worst that can happen is, as it's coming out from the very, 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 very end of the colon, is that you have a little bit of toxic kind of waste kind of trailing behind the clay a little bit, because it's following the clay all the way through your body. So the colon lining of the colon will have a little bit of toxicity there. But that's why consistency with this is very important. That means you keep doing it every day. You do every day. You do at least, I would recommend, a tablespoon or two every day, twice a day. You do it in the morning before breakfast, and or an hour before after breakfast, okay, and an hour. Well, let's just say before you go to bed. So a few hours after you eat, or an hour after you eat, before you go to bed, you take a tablespoon of bentonite clay or two, and just, if you can swallow it as a whole thing, well, however you want to do it. Now you can mix it up into a liquid form, and just then it'll coat everything in your body. You could try, or you can try it in a method, like I would recommend a combination of that and maybe lumping it. So how to lump it? For me, this stuff is granule. So like, I don't know if you can be able to see that. So it's like granules. These are granules, and when you wet them, they become very, very rapidly. They grow, and they soak up the water, and it grows like 10 times its size. Make some liquid form that's very, very liquid. You just let it sit for an hour, even after you've stirred it up, until it becomes like a paste, and then you drink that down. If it's not already in liquid form, and I recommend getting granules, because it's generally you're paying an arm and a leg just for the water in it. Okay, they'll sell you the clay with water absorbed into it, and they up the price just because it's already pre-made. You can get bulk supply much cheaper, and you can take that in, and it'll work very effectively, and you save some money. So now, in order to overcome the problem with assimilation of probiotics, given the fact that our bile tends to break down a large percentage of the probiotics, no matter what the source, my recommendation is the addition of the utilization of baking soda, sodium bicarbonate. And basically, I recommend roughly around about a tablespoon prior to the ingestion of the kefir, and wait about 15 minutes or so is fine. You know, just wait a short while for all of that baking soda to absorb and to pass through, and to basically neutralize the pH in the gut. And when you've neutralized the pH in the gut, that's going to significantly enhance the assimilation of these probiotics through and into the small intestine. If you don't do that, you know, you're going to lose a huge percentage of these probiotics. They're going to end up dying, and their effect will be minimal. I mean, over a long term, if you are taking kefir daily for months and months and years, you're going to have a cumulative effect where you're not going to really have to worry about taking anything like bicarbonate soda. But if you're in an acute situation, and if you're in a situation where you're in urgent need of rapid healing and rapid colonization of your body, in order to avoid things such as surgery or just severe flare-ups, then it is highly recommended that you take around a tablespoon of baking soda about 15 minutes prior to orally ingesting kefir. And that will enhance the assimilation of the probiotics significantly, by a significant margin. What the clay will do is it's going to go through you, and it's going to bind up. In very similar ways, people have taken clay, bentonite clay, they've made salves out of it, this liquid paste, put it on their feet, wrap it up with plastic, leave it for 10 hours or so, come back the next day after it's done, there's all this black soot on the clay where their foot was in contact with the clay. That shows you that the body, that's amazing. It shows you that the body is literally working with the clay to the degree it's willing to push toxins out through your skin, in your feet, directly into the clay. And it'll work like that anywhere on your body. And that's one of the things that'll happen when you put it on as, like, if you're using it as a face mask or facials. Women often do that with bentonite. They smear it on. It'll pull toxins from your feet, out from your feet and out of your forehead. You know, if you put it on your back, it'll pull stuff out from you anywhere. If you have colitis, you can even do a bentonite clay enema. Okay, you make it, and you want to make it, in this case, obviously, as liquid as possible. You want a very, very liquidy paste that can easily flow through an enema bag. And you can do a cup or two at a time. You're gonna feel You're gonna feel stuff being pulled out of your scalp. You're gonna feel your scalp getting lighter and drier suddenly. Your skin on your hands getting drier. The bentonite works with your entire body and your entire immune system and the process of elimination. And it'll pull all the toxins out of your body right into that stool, right there at the very end, and the exit, where it can just be easily expelled within an hour, half hour, whatever, and you're done. And you've cleaned yourself out hugely. And you're also cleaning your blood, because there is and very rapidly, because, you know, in the large intestine, there is some very large veins, and that's why certain medications can be taken rectally that otherwise are broken down by the gut, because it gets absorbed directly into the bloodstream. So with this bentonite, you're getting that right there. You're cleansing your blood, you're cleansing your colon, you're cleansing directly where the colitis is. You're pulling out all the toxic waste that those bugs have left in you very rapidly, faster than you ever could. Of course, taking it orally will have sort of the similar effect, but most of that clay might already be filled with toxins by the time it reaches your large intestine if you're really toxic. So you might want to try doing clay the same way, like as the kefir. You do a bentonite retention enema. Hold it in, well, maybe not a retention enema. You might want to hold it in for a half hour, an hour. And then what will happen is tons of toxic waste is going to be pushed by your body, and your whole system is going to push it out. You know, I take a bentonite when I go hiking. I like to take it before I go hiking so that when I'm sweating, I'm not sweating toxins out into my shirt and into my backpack that's kind of itchy and burny and kind of like, oh, that's gross. You know, like, wow, my backpack is covered now in toxic waste from my body. But if I'm taking bentonite internally, the process of elimination switches and changes, and basically all of those toxins that would have come out through the sweat are going to get pushed into the clay. So then you're not getting this, and because it binds with it and it locks it in, it's not able to cause the human body discomfort. So basically, I can go hiking and go mountain climbing and things like that, and I sweat, but I never feel gross when I'm sweating. I don't feel like I'm toxic. In fact, if there was any toxins in my back where I start sweating, they are likely getting pulled back through the bloodstream and forced and pushed into the clay itself. Very similarly to how you put on this clay on your feet, it's going to absorb the heavy metals and toxins and things through your feet itself. All right, these two things, bentonite clay and kefir, traditional kefir, those two things will cure your colitis. They will permanently cure your colitis. They'll permanently cure your Crohn's disease. They'll permanently cure your candida. They'll permanently cure your irritable bowel syndrome. They'll permanently cure your leaky gut and similar things permanently. However, there are circumstances, if in the future that you do end up taking antibiotics again, or if for whatever freak reason you end up coming into contact with some freak virus or whatever, that you might it might be a good idea and a wise idea to, well, certainly if you're going to ever take an antibiotic, always follow up with a probiotic. Never ever think of ever taking an antibiotic without following up with a probiotic, because all you're doing is you're destroying everything. And unless you already were a healthy person before, chances are, you could end up recolonizing yourself with these nasty critters that will just take over and hurt you. Okay, I know the doctors are going to say one thing. The doctors are going to tell you you're permanently, there's no cure. It's an autoimmune disease. It's this, it's that, and blah, blah, blah. And the only thing you can take are these anti-inflammatories, these steroids or surgery, and blah, blah, blah. These guys don't know. They don't know what they're doing. They're causing a lot more harm. They're causing permanent disfiguration of human beings. They are healing people on a certain level. All right? So they are, sure, okay, removing your large intestine is better than death. Okay? That's definitely true. I mean, if you have the choice between death and not having your large intestine and crapping into a bag for the rest of your life, you're probably going to choose that. But if most doctors, they don't know that it's curable. They don't understand that this is a completely reversible condition. And they're not going to convince you. They're going to tell you the only solution is this. They're going to say the only solution is surgery or drugs or this or that. And it's not. That's not true at all. There's no truth to that whatsoever. The only truth there is in that is if you buy into it and you follow that and you put your own personal responsibility into the hands of these so-called experts, you know, and they end up permanently mutilating your body for the rest of your life. So I don't recommend you go that route, personally. That's my opinion. I recommend you treat your body with love and respect and think for yourself and follow the advice of the people that have been known to have cured their colitis. And basically all the research I've done, there's only a handful of cases that I've seen that didn't use kefir. Kefir is generally, you know, some form of, a lot of these guys are just using lacto-fermented vegetables like, you know, kimchi and sauerkraut and what do they call that stuff? Miso, Japanese fermented rice. A lot of people are using kefir. That's the main one. Kombucha is obvious. You know, any form of lacto fermenting and all that stuff. A lot of these people, that's all they did. They might have had even just a little bit of oral kefir. A lot of these people cured themselves just by drinking it. A lot of people cured themselves just by taking and eating fermented vegetables, fermented sauerkraut and all these things, and they ended up in the long run curing themselves. There's certain guys though who I've heard and who've done kefir and all this stuff. There's a lot of them who said, one in particular who's got the most views on YouTube here, and he says, well, he says if he would have known better, and I can link to this in the description if you want, but if he would have known better, he would have, and he could have started all over again. He would have done kefir from the very beginning.
How did I heal from ulcerative colitis? I followed a lot of different protocols, and if I were to go back and start over with the knowledge I have now, I would implement 2 different things: fermented vegetables and raw dairy, especially kefir.
And that's what ended up primarily helping him, as well as changing the diet and all that stuff. But like I say, the diet, if you read that article below about how microbiotics control your diet, you'll realize just how much they end up manipulating us. You know, there might be, and there certainly is for certain foods, a reason to change your diet. But what I found is by doing this method, using this method with kefir retention, there's no food allergies, there's no issues after. You can eat whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. You can be who you are. You can imbibe once in a while. You can have more sugar than you normally do. You can do whatever you want. And you can just hit that reset button again if you need to. But by and large, once you've done it once, that's it. You've fixed it. You fixed your problem, and it's permanent. And it's not going to come back. And if you're ever going to get sick, it's not going to be as bad as it used to be. And yeah, if you do the research, you're going to find, if you type in how I cured my colitis, most of them, generally speaking, and all the advice you'll find on all these sites, they're going to say probiotics, they're going to say cut out this food, that food. A lot of that's great advice. But they're not going to mention Kefir Retention Enema. That's the one thing these guys are missing. There's one particular fellow who I spoke to recently who cured his colitis. It's been 10 years. He hasn't had any remissions. But he does have occasionally. He still says, yes, occasionally I eat certain foods, and I still am battling with this dysbiosis. I'm still battling with, and this guy is like a well-researched fellow who has his own, he's sort of like a naturopathic doctor almost, you know, and he's basically teaching people how he overcame his colitis and how he healed it and what he did. And I think he has books on it and all sorts of stuff. But he's saying he still has occasionally this battle between the good and bad bacteria. And I emailed him and I said to him, my brother, I mean, if you want to cure that permanently, you have to be willing to do kefir both ways. See, I did it for years. I did it for like 10 years. And I still, if I ate certain foods, it would throw me off. I'd get all messed up in a very severe way. My gut would really react, okay? But, you know, after I started taking kefir enemas, that recolonized my whole system. And there was no food I couldn't eat that, you know, had any kind of problem. I mean, if I had to, yeah, like I might crave a little sugar the next day. If I have some ice cream, I might feel a little craving. If I do a kefir enema instead, all that craving goes away, okay? You know, but by and large, I've never had an issue. I haven't done a kefir retention enema in months and months and months, and I'm feeling healthier than I ever have been. You guys out there who haven't done a Kefir Retention Enema, that is the key. That is one of the main keys because, like I say, most of it is pre-digested. It's digested and absorbed and assimilated before it even reaches the large intestine. So you're not able to get both ends as thoroughly and effectively as you like. And that's the problem. You know, the problem is that these guys the bad guys have time to adapt and adjust and get some kind of rooting in there. But when you do a Kefir Enema, you're hitting them and just nailing them right where you need to hit them in a way that there's no competition. They can't fight back. They can barely do anything. It's just, you just put in a half a gallon, or, you know, like 2 cups or to a liter or whatever you want to take, you know, all at once. There's no way for those bad bacteria to get a fold. They're done. That's it, permanently. Babies, for infants, for adults, for children, elderly. Anyone can do this. It's the safest thing you can do. It's much safer than surgery and cutting yourself open and mutilating your body. Okay? It's much safer, infinitely safer than any drug you can get from your doctor. Some of them do work and have worked, but this will do it. This will heal you. And it'll probably take, if you had any food allergies, all that's going to be gone by and large. So here's something I almost forgot now. Now, a lot of people who have Crohn's disease, they end up, they'll be eating their food. And this is one of the most important things to mention, that, you know, it's so simple and important, and it's so funny that so many of us just ignore it. We don't recognize this simple task of chewing and how we eat our food, and how important it is that we really truly fully assimilate our food and how we eat. You know, and when we eat, and when we drink, and when do we drink after we eat, and all these things can really contribute to having like a really unhealthy gut. This should be actually the first thing I mentioned in this video. Now, you know, when we chew our food, basically the body, you know, in the first process of digestion, the food is hitting our tongue, it's mixing with our saliva, it's detecting our senses and our nerves in our body are detecting the kinds of food, what kind of protein, what kind of fat, what kind of sugar, what kind of this and that is in our body, or that we're consuming, and it starts secreting enzymes designed specifically to break down these various substances that we're digesting, or we will be digesting soon. And so a lot of people, and myself occasionally, you know, we all find ourselves occasionally, perhaps, you know, not chewing our food thoroughly. And so what happens is then that food goes through the gut undigested, and that can cause incredible amount of bloating and other issues, because then other bacteria and fungi and things in the gut end up getting more food, you know, there for them to digest, and that can create in of itself dysbiosis, because then there's a lot more problem breaking down food in the gut. It's there, you know, especially meat products. You know, if we don't chew them thoroughly enough, the protein can end up basically going putrid in the gut and fermenting and things like that, and can cause all kinds of issues. Now, a lot of people who suffer with colitis also report that their food is coming out the other end completely undigested. You know, they're finding undigested food in their colon that's coming out the other end that is not been broken down, and that should have been already chewed up to the point of not being able to recognize it. These people are obviously not chewing their foods thoroughly. They're not doing a thorough enough job. What you need to do, especially if you have colitis and irritable bowel and all this stuff, is you have to make sure that you're chewing your food thoroughly before you swallow it. 70 times minimum. If you're eating a meat, especially, it's like 70. Chew your meat 70 times before swallowing. Make sure that there's no little chunks, no little things, no little pieces left. You want it to be pulverized into puree, you know, by your teeth. You want that to be completely easily digestible. So then the bacteria aren't working on it. It's not causing upset. It's not getting hung up on anything in your colon anywhere. That will significantly enhance your experience. Now, these enzymes. What are enzymes, and how do they get there, and how does the body function with enzymes? Well, if you look at magnesium in particular, a lot of people will call magnesium the teacher in the classroom of all the minerals, and the most important mineral in the body. And they say often that if the magnesium is missing, then all the pupils, all the students in the classroom don't know how to function and don't know what to do. Magnesium is responsible for over 800 enzymatic reactions in the body, and that's just what we're beginning to learn. It was only a few years ago doctors and scientists were saying maybe 300 enzymatic reactions. Now it's up to 800, and there's some more, like 1,300 different processes that magnesium is involved in the body. But magnesium in of itself is responsible for roughly around, so far as we know at this point, 800 enzymatic reactions in the body. Okay. Now, enzymes are used for breaking down food. And if we are magnesium deficient, we're not going to be able to break down our food very easily. We're not going to be able to create the enzymes necessary in order to digest food. People with colitis often are not assimilating, because magnesium is assimilated in the colon anyway. They're not able to bring that in as easily, so they need more higher quantities of magnesium in order to help break that down. Sorry, in order to absorb that magnesium. So what I recommend people do is to increase their intake of magnesium while they're going through their healing phase. And I use it through Epsom salt. Okay, it's just a cheap and easy way. Magnesium is the second most abundant mineral on the planet. That's why you can get like 4 kilograms for like $10. It's perfectly fine. If you want to, and if you really care enough, you can. If you have the money and you can afford it, you can get food grade quality magnesium. This stuff is still fine. It works great. I use it. I don't care. It's probably just the processing plant in particular and the container itself that isn't really that lovely. That it may not be food grade, but I'm already clean enough, healthy enough. My body can deal with that. It works fine for me. Okay, but you might want to get some, if you can afford it, some high quality magnesium. Epsom salts. You can even buy them in chunks and rock chunks and sprinkle that into your food. Sprinkle that into your various meals, and just increasing that will help with the digestion of your food. If you're making like a soup, for example, or a broth, or even kefir, you can throw in a little bit of that magnesium in. If you're going to throw magnesium into kefir, make sure you use it in a batch that you're fermenting that doesn't include the kefir grains, because you don't want to upset that natural balance. I mean, milk has been around forever, for hundreds of thousands of years. Mammalian milk has adapted perfectly well with kefir grains over these years. So I personally wouldn't really want to add magnesium to the grains. So what I do though, and what I have done is I've made kefir water so far with adding magnesium. So I'll take like a quarter teaspoon maybe in a liter or 2 liters, quarter teaspoon or so, or to half a teaspoon max, into like 2 liters of kefir water in a jar of kefir water. And then what happens with the kefir is basically, by and large, what they're doing is they're producing tons and tons and tons of enzymes in order to break down the lactose, the lactase, and everything in the kefir milk, or in the goat milk, or in the kefir water. Now, in kefir water, there's far fewer species of fungi and bacteria. There's maybe 7 that end up surviving and end up thriving in the sugar water, but they're still there and they're still good and they're probiotic. They're not nearly as beautiful and effective as kefir milk as itself, but this is still interesting. And I've done some experiments, and I've found some very novel and amazing ways of increasing the enzymatic count in the body freely without having to spend an arm and a leg on enzymes themselves to help the body with the breaking down the digestive process. And also with, if you're suffering from colitis, you're going to have you might have like mucoid plaque in the colon that's stuck to everything. And what magnesium is going to do is it's going to help your body to digest and break that down. It's going to help the good bacteria in your colon to break down that mucoid plaque and digest and just assimilate it and push it out the body. And what's an amazing thing, it seemed to be a very powerful and profound thing that I came up with, experimenting around with kefir water and magnesium. During the second ferment, I was adding of kefir water. I was adding ginger and turmeric. Okay, and then I'd added, like I said, a quarter teaspoon or so of pure magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt, and during the second ferment. So then it sat for a day or two at least, fermenting with that magnesium. And what I believe, and I'm not absolutely scientifically certain, but it seemed to be the truth for me, is that it increased the enzymatic production of all the bacteria in the kefir water to incredible degree. Okay, that's what it seemed to me. What ended up happening was, for example, I went out and I went to Subway and I bought a sub. I brought with me a bottle of fermented kefir water in one of these beautiful little sealable brew home brewing jars. So I had my I had my kefir water, ginger, turmeric. Oh, actually 3 things. I also had pineapple, which is also supposed to be very, very good for digestion. Okay, so kefir, turmeric, raw turmeric, by the way, or actually it's best to use powdered turmeric. If you're going to make kefir water, use powdered turmeric and then add pepper on the last day or the last minute when you're before you drink it or before you refrigerate it. That's the best time, because I did notice the taste of pepper was completely removed. It's like the bacteria completely digested the pepperin or the pepper flavor. They broke it down and I couldn't taste it, so I didn't know whether or not I'm still getting the benefit between the combination of turmeric and pepper. Now, pepper makes turmeric 20 times more assimilative in the body. So if you take turmeric on its own, you're getting 1/20th of what you get than if you added just a pinch of pepper. So about 1,000 milligrams of pepper to 20 milligrams of, 1,000 milligrams of turmeric, raw turmeric or powdered turmeric, to 20 milligrams of pepper. That's just a pinch, basically, for every gram. So for every gram of turmeric, a pinch of pepper will make it 20 times more assimilatable in the body. It'll make it 20 times more absorbent, so that your body will bring that in, and that reduces swelling. Turmeric is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories you can get in nature. It is incredibly anti-inflammatory. Ginger, which is the other ingredient I added to this, raw ginger, also is incredibly anti-inflammatory. It's also anti-diarrhea, and there's so many different things, and I'll list them down in the description so that you can see the list of how many symptoms that you have with colitis, and all these other irritable bowel syndromes are treated very, very well with ginger. Ginger is very soothing. It helps to relieve of nausea and indigestion and diarrhea and so many different things that are often associated with colitis. All right, or any of these other irritable syndromes, bowel syndromes. So I added turmeric, ginger, and by the way, I was already healthy. I don't have any. At this point, when I'm making this, I don't have any issues. I'm just doing it for experimenting and because I was trying out kefir water for the first time, and I'm trying to find out some interesting ways of doing with it. So I did turmeric, ginger, and then I added pineapple, because pineapple itself is already loaded with digestive enzymes that really can help people to break down food, and it really aids in the digestion of all sorts of things in the body. So I thought, wow, what an amazing thing to add to your kefir water to make this, because kefir water on its own is a enzymatic powerhouse. It creates enzymes galore that help and go through your body and help to break things down and do all those processes. And I thought, what more could I do than to add some magnesium to the process? Because if magnesium is responsible for over 800 enzymatic reactions in the body, what are the odds and what are the chances that magnesium is responsible for all kinds of enzymatic reactions with the bacteria themselves? So I thought, well, let's try. So you're superpowering these probiotics to be mass-producing enzymes in ways they never could before because of the added magnesium, or you're just getting it, your body is doing it naturally through its own processes. It's one or the other. I believe it's the former. I believe it's the former. See, what I did then is I took that kefir water, ginger, turmeric, pepper, and pineapple mix, and I added some magnesium. I let it ferment for 2 days. I had it sitting beside a Himalayan pink lamp to speed up the process so that it would keep things warmer. It'd warm it up, and it sped up the fermentation process to half the time. And I put some kefir jars around my Himalayan salt lamp, and then I covered it with a towel, and then warmed everything up, sped the process up quite a bit. That was good. It worked for me. And then I went to Subway, okay, and I brought a jar of this with me. I started drinking while I was eating the sub. I started drinking between each bite. I had a little bit of this, just a sip of it each time, or every 3 or 4 bites. I'd have you know, like an ounce or so, a shot of this. Drink it down, drink it down. By the time I was halfway through my foot-long sub, I was about 6 inches. I didn't even feel like I ate anything. It was a very weird thing. It was very interesting. I felt like I had not eaten anything. I'm just like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm still hungry. Usually I'll have a half of the sub, and I'm full, and I don't want to eat anything, and that's it, and it's over. What's going on here? I then finished the other half of the sub with the same technique. I was drinking this between each sip, between each bite. And then by the time I was done with the full foot-long sub, I still felt like I didn't feel anything. It felt like everything was being digested instantaneously in my body. And I could have eaten another foot-long sub. I could have kept going and kept going and kept going. What I believe was going on there was that the enzymatic production, just from what's in the jar itself, just from what was in the bottle itself, with the help of the magnesium, supercharged and superpowered the process of production of enzymes in the kefir that went into the body and sped up the breakdown of food to a degree that was unbelievable. It was absolutely mind-blowing. So that's a possibility now. I was only trying that with a kefir water. You could try, and I recommend you do try the same thing with kefir milk on a second ferment in its own container that is where there's no grains. You don't want to add the grains. You want this to be its own experiment. So you could use a gallon of milk. You could add a teaspoon of magnesium in there and just mix it up well, or maybe mix it up in a boiled, sterile water, like an ounce of water, and just stir it until it's dissolved. Pour it into the kefir milk, or pour it into the milk jug, shake it up, add a teaspoon of kefir, shake it up, and wait 24 hours and start drinking that and see what happens, because that may very well end up creating so many enzymes in the kefir milk itself that it is mind-blowing. I'm going to do some research just to be certain after this video, because I haven't done it yet. I'm going to look up microbiotic, see if there's microbes utilize magnesium in the production of enzymes. I'm sure it's got to be out there. So, and I will include a link somewhere in the description to that if I find anything, and I will mention it. And I'll write this down now so I don't forget. So, and you'll see it there, and I'll confirm, and I'll say in the description whether or not it actually is true. And if it is, then you can guarantee your kefir water is just like so loaded with enzymes. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and that's what your body really needs. It's lacking in that, especially when you have colitis, any kind of irritable bowel. Your body is just really, really, really burdened with all this excess garbage and waste, and the these bad bacteria that need to become in balance. So by adding magnesium, it's going to help you one way or another. Whether or not the probiotics are actually utilizing it on their own, you're still getting that magnesium. You're still adding it into the kefir water, milk. You're getting that extra magnesium your body needs in order to produce over 800 enzymatic reactions in your body to help you with the breakdown of whatever garbage that your body is incapable of dealing with right now. And if you look up magnesium and colitis, you're going to find a lot of information. There's a lot of information. They say that you need that. There's some links I will add in the description that will include information on that and why magnesium is essential to our digestive system and a healthy digestion. And why and most people are actually deficient in it. So it's very important to add that.
So magnesium, I'm trying to look up magnesium. Bacteria use their own pumps to collect magnesium. It's talking about E. coli in particular. And interestingly, they say, so it's used by all bacteria for reproduction mainly, and also the production of enzymes. Magnesium is a mineral found in all living organisms. Okay. Magnesium deficiency in this article is bacteria. I was just looking up bacteria use their own pumps to collect magnesium. I was just looking up bacteria and magnesium. What do they do with it? And lo and behold, it says here, magnesium deficiency is not especially common, but occurs in patients with intestinal diseases such as Crohn's disease. What do you know? These patients often live with cramps and various illnesses. Well, the body has a way of removing magnesium from the colon in order to prevent bad bacteria from using it and multiplying. Magnesium deficiency can be deadly for bacteria. This has led to our own cells developing a mechanism that removes magnesium and other metals from bacteria when they start to attack us. So there's a, if you're using magnesium while you have Crohn's, you want to make sure you're also supplementing with good bacteria at the same time like crazy, especially kefir, because you don't want to be just giving those bad guys the leg up. Now here it says magnesium is a macronutrient and acts as a cofactor for some enzymes and is present in cell walls and membranes. Ribosomes especially require magnesium ions. A cell will not copy its DNA in preparation for cell division unless it knows that it has enough ribosomes to make new proteins. So what this will do is speed up the production of your kefir. It'll speed up the multiplication of them. It'll increase their ability to create enzymes. Magnesium and gut microbiome. Do you know that our gut microbiome needs a good supply of magnesium for energy to do all its jobs properly? Beneficial gut bacteria are extremely important for good health. Did you know that we rely on our gut microbiome more than we do for our own cells and enzymes for digestion of food and nutrient absorption? Magnesium is good for digestion. Let's just look at it. Magnesium and energy, just going over this. I'll put the link in the description. Magnesium for physical maintenance, repair, organ protection, path of digestion, salivary and enzymes for breaking down carbs, saliva, diabetes, salivary and stones, stomach acid, it plays a role in the pancreas for digesting. So we create, with magnesium, we create amylase, protease, and lipase enzymes to break down glucose change into single glucose units, and amino acid change into single amino acid units, and to break down triglycerides into fatty acids. Magnesium in our intestines lifespan. There's so many things here. Digestive health needs magnesium. Anyway, I'm going to add this link here. I'm just basically really scraping over the surface of this. There's not too much. There's so much information here, I should say. It's just crazy. Learn how digestion of fat, carbohydrates, and proteins is magnesium dependent and how resolving digestive problems also requires magnesium. So these are like some of the main things that a lot of people overlook when it comes to these issues here. I'm seeing something on my screen. A video capture, that should be alright. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, there's just a few overviews on all that. I was right. I looked into it. Yeah, bacteria use magnesium for their cell division and their procreation, and for I imagine, I didn't see too much information, but basically for the production of enzymes as well. So when you're adding extra magnesium to your kefir, you're actually especially because there's all good probiotics in there. There's nothing bad. You're hypercharging them with a tremendous amount of magnesium they need in order to create enzymes, in order for reproduction, and it just supercharges them. And then you're also getting that extra magnesium in your product after when you're drinking it for your body to use and assimilate for its own processes. So you end up just supercharging yourself with an incredible amount of enzymes and everything you need in order to flourish. I'm going to look a little more into this and be right back with you. So the combination of kefir, bentonite clay, magnesium, just those three alone, and the usage and application of it through retention enemas, through rectal infusions, that is the key to long, healthy gut life. And people in the Caucasus, where kefir originally came from, who ate kefir at least once a day, they lived to be at least over 100 years old on average, and they gave their long life. They claimed that their long life was due to the use and the ingestion of kefir. That their longevity was based in that, and that just goes to show you how important our microbiology in our gut really is in order to maintain a healthy balance
in our systems. And by taking this kefir, you're going to fortify your body against all kinds of infections, like viruses and bacteria and protozoa and fungi and things that you end up ingesting through just breathing through your mouth, through eating foods that somebody might have touched when you're at the mall and you get something, or you're going through the aisle, you're going over the conveyor belt, they're putting your food on that, other people have touched that, coughed, and their hands touch things, and you're consuming things orally that way. Well, you have all these extra probiotics in your body that actually act as a defense layer between you and these viruses, so you're going to be far less likely to actually even get sick in any way by taking probiotics. They offer a very powerful barrier between you and that, and also food allergies, things that so-called allergies. A lot of these things, again, they don't really exist because of some kind of genetic thing or some predisposition to some genetic weakness that we have in our body that makes us incapable of digesting things. Oftentimes, it is actually the bacteria in our gut. So you want to keep that in mind and remember these things, share these things. The key is being willing rather to do, instead of doing it orally, you have to be willing to try and test things out going rectally, which I know for a lot of people out there, it's like it's new territory. They feel afraid of that maybe. But I swear to God, it's a lot better than somebody sticking a knife in you and cutting you out and mutilating your body permanently. Something gentle like that will certainly and absolutely be sure to heal you. Try this out. You've got nothing to lose. I guarantee it'll heal. I guarantee it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything I missed here, if there's anything else I can add. I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. But I will follow up with future videos. I recommend any kind of food. Okay, I'll give you the overall protocol. My protocol will be this. So for 7 days, you got colitis, you got Crohn's disease, you got irritable bowel, leaky gut, candida, whatever. I mean, if you just got candida and it's not extremely severe, try just 2 cups. Just to watch and see what that does on its own. Even with colitis, that might be very much enough to heal you overnight, and just progressively over the next few weeks as those species start taking over your whole body, as they slowly creep up through the colon, you're going to find yourself healed. But, there's a lot of people out there who it's a life or death thing. The doctors are warning them you could die if you don't get your colon removed and all this stuff. They're freaked out. Well, if you want to go the hardcore route and you want to heal that up, then I will give you a protocol just for that. Now, what I recommend is 7 days. For 7 days, you make kefir every single day. You have kefir every single day. You drink 2 cups of raw, and this has to be traditional kefir, preferably if you can get it. If you can't get it, you can get, like I said, kefir from the local grocer. You can use that, put a teaspoon in a gallon of milk that night. The first time you open that kefir, put a little bit in a gallon of milk, about a teaspoon. Shake it up well, leave that overnight. Tomorrow you're going to have another gallon of kefir. You didn't have to buy it. It's free, okay? You save a ton of money. So you're getting out of a liter or half a liter, you're getting a full gallon for the cost of milk. But if you can get yourself traditional kefir at the same time, okay? If you can't, especially if you can't order or find any kefir in the store, you need to get yourself grains as soon as possible. You have to do that. You can order them on eBay. You can order them on websites. Wherever you can find them, get yourself some kefir. Start making your own traditional kefir. That's the best quality you can get. Otherwise, just use the store-bought stuff and don't stop until you start making traditional kefir. Get your hands on those grains as soon as possible. The best time to do it is right when it's perfectly fresh, before it's right as you're seeing it, like you're holding it in the jar and you're like, whoa, it's getting thicker just right watching it. That's the perfect time to put it in your colon. That's the best time to put it in your colon. Yeah, even waiting a little bit longer is cool too. That means there's less sugar for any other competition to get their hands on. But it won't matter. The kefir is just, you're going to be pouring it in there. Okay, so the protocol goes like this. You're going to do kefir 3 times a day. So once in the morning for breakfast, once at lunch, and once at supper. During breakfast and supper, you're going to do Kefir Retention Enemas. And during breakfast, lunch, and supper, you're going to drink it orally as well. So you're only doing enemas in the morning and in the evening. That's it. Now, in order to overcome the problem with the assimilation of probiotics, given the fact that our bile tends to break down a large percentage of the probiotics, no matter what the source, my recommendation is the addition of the utilization of baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, and basically I recommend roughly around about a tablespoon prior to the ingestion of the kefir, and wait about 15 minutes or so is fine. You know, just wait a short while for all of that baking soda to absorb and to pass through, and to basically neutralize the pH in the gut. And when you've neutralized the pH in the gut, that's going to significantly enhance the assimilation of these probiotics through and into the small intestine. If you don't do that, you know, you're going to lose a huge percentage of these probiotics. They're going to end up dying, and their effect will be minimal. I mean, over a long term, if you are taking kefir daily for months and months and years, you're going to have a cumulative effect where you're not going to really have to worry about taking anything like bicarbonate soda. But if you're in an acute situation, and if you're in a situation where you're in urgent need of rapid healing and rapid colonization of your body in order to avoid things such as surgery or just severe flare-ups, then it is highly recommended that you take around a tablespoon of baking soda about 15 minutes prior to orally ingesting kefir. And that will enhance the assimilation of the probiotics significantly, by a significant margin. I recommend, if you want more success and better coverage of your colon, what you should be doing, you should be mixing your kefir with chia seeds, flax, and psyllium husk, and blending that all together and letting it soak and sit for a little while, like a few minutes, so that it can really homogenize and get really thick. Give it about 8 minutes or so, like that. Mix it up, get it nice and thick, and then drink that down as a whole. And what that will do is it's going to allow for the kefir to make it all the way through to the other end of your body. Otherwise, it's mostly going to be all digested very rapidly and very quickly. This will allow it to reach a lot further, a lot stronger, and it's also, because of the fiber, it's going to help to clean out your colon at the same time. So what you do in the morning is, first of all, you take your kefir and your enema. You do it around the same time, 2 cups at a time. You retain that. You hold that in. You drink 2 cups of it. Hold it in the best you can. You know, if you're having a hard time holding stuff down, try again later. You know, make sure you stock up, have enough kefir for that, and that's it. So basically, drink roughly 2 cups at a time. 2 cups in the morning, 2 cups at lunch, 2 cups at night. Rectally, 2 cups in the morning, 2 cups at night. That's enough. If you do want to go further, that's your choice. You can do what you want with this, but at very minimum, I recommend those twice a day, in the morning and night. 12 hours apart or so. Before, when you wake up and during the night, you're gonna hit it hard. You're gonna hit it heavy. Okay, and then what you're gonna do after you take your kefir each time, about half an hour later, after it's mostly passed through your body, about half hour or so is fine. Take about 1 to 2 tablespoons of bentonite clay, and that's basically it. And make sure you do that after you've done your kefir, as it'll trail behind much slower. The kefir is going to move through you a lot quicker. The clay is a lot more sticky. It's going to kind of trail behind, and the clay will act as a cleansing agent that will clear your body. And that's the protocol. It's very, very simple. And you can eat what you want in between, but there's a reason why you want to do this clay, and it's very important. And if there's any battle going on between the good and the bad, your body is going to have this extra storage that it can transport and move all of this chemical warfare going on between the good and the bad bacteria. It's going to push all that toxic waste into the clay so that your body won't have to deal with that extra burden. It's just like taking activated charcoal when you poisoned yourself from taking and overdosing drugs. It just pushes, your body will push all that stuff, and it'll save your life. Same thing with colitis and all these other issues. Your body's going to push all that excess toxic waste into there, and then your body will be able to deal with it. Do that for 7 days, every day for 7 days, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I would say keep your diet to minimum, cut out any kind of, during that period, no pop, no sugar. Not that you're going to be craving it after a day or two. Your cravings are going to completely change. You're not going to be feeling any craving for sugar or any of that. If you have no appetite, then rectal infusions are going to be very, very helpful and necessary, okay? Because you're not going to be able to hold it down very well. If you throw it up, drink more right away. Don't stop. Don't give up on your body. Make sure you hit it heavy and hard as you can. You want to drink as much as you can. If you want to drink a liter, go for it. Like 2 cups in the morning, 2 cups at night minimum. 2 cups rectally in the morning, 2 cups at night, 2 cups during lunch. Drink a couple then. Take your bentonite clay between all that. That will cleanse your body, and you're going to be healed so fast and so powerfully and so profoundly. You'll never have to go back to anything. If you were on medication from the doctor, chances are within a week or 2 or 3 or a month, you're going to realize that all that stuff is not necessary. Surgery is no longer an option. It's not, you don't need it. The doctors are going to be like, well, we don't know what happened. Yeah, maybe, I guess you didn't have Crohn's. I guess you didn't have colitis. That's probably what they'll tell you. I've heard that story more than once. They'll just change their story and they'll say, oh, I guess there was a misdiagnosis. No, it was because you cured it. And it's a curable disease. Okay. There's other things you can do. Let me think here. It just crossed my mind and I forgot about it. I guess I could tell you a little bit about bentonite. I saved my dog's life. I was in Dominica. I was traveling the world, and I thought, my goodness, I've heard so many terrible stories about people getting infected with parasites and not having any recourse, and then they come home and they have all these terrible experiences because they didn't have any tools to deal with it there, except for the medical system, perhaps. But some people even die, occasionally traveling. And I was going to Dominica. It's one of the wildest places in the world. It's basically a rainforest, tropical Caribbean island. And I'm here, and I'm like swimming through. I know I'll be swimming through the rivers and the ocean, and who knows what kind of food I'm eating there. So I wanted to make sure that I was healthy. I didn't want to have any parasites. I didn't want to have any problems there. So I intentionally brought bentonite clay for the expressed purpose in case that I ever get some kind of bug, parasite, or gastrointestinal problem from the food there. And I also brought my kefir grains so that I ended up producing kefir there for the 8 months I was there. Thank God for that. And I take kefir wherever I travel. Even if I'm only traveling for a week or 2, I'll take those kefir grains with me. I love kefir, and I bring it with me wherever I can. My dog there, I was told by the neighbors, if your dog is running around loose without a leash, she's going to get poisoned one day. They're going to poison her. They're going to kill her. They kill dogs there like they kill rats, and they do. And they put out rat poison all the time, things like that. And it wasn't even a couple of days after I was warned that my dog comes home one day there, and she is just like, she can't even see straight. She's like wobbling, like her eyes are up, and she's just like, and her gut is like kind of like rolling, and she, she can't even sit up straight, and she looks like she's about to fall over just standing there. And I'm like, obviously this dog's been poisoned, or is extremely sick. Highly unlikely. I just saw her a few hours ago. There was nothing wrong with her. And suddenly she comes home and she's like so sick it's crazy, and I've just been warned that they poison dogs there. So I immediately, I got my clay here, I got my bentonite, the same stuff right here. So I went in my cupboard inside, I grabbed a glass beer bottle, okay, I stuck some paper in the top or whatever, I don't remember exactly how I did it, put in some nice warm semi-hot water so that it would speed up the absorption of the clay, put about a tablespoon or 2 in there, shook it up. It was about up to there. It was very thick, like watery, but not too thick. It was just perfect so that I could push it down her throat. Brought it to her. I lifted her neck up, all the way up, as high as possible. I stuck the bottle down her throat, forced it down so she, it was way down to here, so there was no way she could cough it up or push it out with her tongue. Not that she could. She was already so gone, it looked like she was about to fall over and pass out and die. I poured that into her. Within about 30 seconds to about 1 minute, her symptoms start like basically going away almost completely. She stops being wobbly. She's looking around. Within about 5 minutes, all of her symptoms were gone. And within about 15 minutes later, I could tell there's no problem. That was it, cured, healed. It basically is the same thing as like putting activated charcoal down your throat, right? Now, if you're poisoned, people would do that. They use activated charcoal, the same thing. Bentonite is basically that. It's basically the same thing. So that saved what I believe saved her life that day. It happened and it cured her and it cleaned her out so quickly. It left me no doubt in my mind that she had been poisoned. And that really saved her butt. And it's the toxic waste in people who have irritable bowel issues that is dangerous, and that a lot of people, they recommend surgery, otherwise people could die, they say. So that's why the best thing a doctor could do for any patient who has colitis who's in the hospital is to feed them activated charcoal. If they give them activated charcoal, all those toxins your colon is not capable of handling, they're just going to get forced and pushed into that activated charcoal. It's going to go through you out the other end or wherever, however your body can deal with it, but you're going to be a lot healthier and you're going to heal a lot quicker that way. That's the best thing and the only thing the doctors could do other than the Kefir Enema, but they don't know about this stuff, and that doesn't follow their protocol, but it works and it does heal those issues. Do the clay regardless of your current condition. If you have the runs, if you have an upset stomach, do it anyway. I mean, if you have a history of years and years and years of battling this and you've been in and out of it over and over, you'll know better than anyone what you're capable of tolerating. However, if you're in an acute situation, it's the first time, you're just learning about all this, then get on the clay no matter what. I would do that because you don't have anything to lose. Actually, you do. You have potentially your colon. But you do not have anything to lose taking the clay. You do not have anything to lose. In fact, you have nothing but something to gain from that. Even if you're sick, even if you have, you're barely able to keep anything down, what your body is doing is trying to starve the bad bacteria by not allowing you to consume any kind of food, to induce a sort of state of fasting when we lose our appetites, right? Most of the flus and sicknesses we have, what's happening, the body is being purged. Your body itself is purging itself of the various foods and to relieve the digestive system of any form of digestion, and that relieves the body of about 30% of its energy, which it can put towards the immune system and healing organs and other vital infrastructure in the body. And that's why when people get sick, they often get like diarrhea and they throw up. I haven't had that in 7-8 years. Since I started taking kefir, I never thrown up once because my body's flora and fauna are so healthy, and all the good probiotics I have in my body are so fortified and so strong that they basically prevent any kind of diarrhea or flu. And I don't remember the last time I had diarrhea or flu that was not induced by, say, vitamin C or maybe magnesium, which can, if you overdose or take too much, cause that. But when it comes to our body's healing processes, the diarrhea and the throwing up is happening in order to purge the body to create more energy through the elimination of the digestive function. Basically, after 3 days, your stomach shuts down. 30% of your body's energy then is redirected into your immunity and to healing. So, but with clay, what's happening is clay acts more as an agent of absorption. Not like, it's somewhat like some forms of fiber. You'll notice when you fill psyllium husk or chia seeds or flax with water, it gets very gelatinous, and you can see how much it expands very rapidly, and it's very absorbent, right? With bentonite is the same way. If you get dry bentonite like I do, and if it's dry, you use, say, 3 to 5 tablespoons would be awesome for a first dose of dry that would probably fill close to a cup of water, or 2 cups of water. Use warm water. That will allow it to absorb very rapidly into the water. Hot water will even be quicker. Otherwise, it could take half an hour, maybe, until it's fully absorbed. But you see how much bentonite grows and expands, and because its surface area is incredibly wide, and porous, and that's the reason why it's such a powerful absorbent. It has a very large surface area that will attract negatively charged ions, and they'll stick to that clay's huge surface area, and they bind to it very, very much so, and so that your body doesn't have to deal with the burden of elimination. So that actually is something you can take even if you have no appetite. If you're purging, if your body's trying to cleanse and say, I don't need food, I can't have any food right now, I need to cleanse this food out so that I can direct energy towards healing, more energy towards healing, which it does. If you research fasting, you'll understand that very well, that the body heals far, far, far more effectively while fasting than while eating. Okay, and that's the body's natural defense mechanism. That's why we throw up and why we get diarrhea. It's not because it's just the bacteria. That's part of it, but it's the body's saying, okay, I need more immunity. I got to cut off this digestion, and then when I cut off that digestion, and by purging the body of all foods, then that energy is redirected towards healing. It's the body saying, I need to starve these bad bacteria. I got to starve them out, and then redirect that energy towards my immunity. So it's starving out the bad bacteria in the colon, because that's where it's all taking place. It's right there. And your body is then redirecting that energy that would have gone to digestion into your immune system, into healing your body. And if you're blessed enough to have the right foods, the right people, the right treatment, if you're lucky, maybe, you'll figure it out in time. I need probiotics. I need healthy probiotics to recolonize and take over. And if I don't get that done in time, bad things can really happen, and people end up often getting their colon removed permanently and shitting out of a bag for the rest of their lives. So what you want to do is before you even enter that doctor's office, or once you find out about this, immediately you want to get yourself the clay, you want to get yourself the probiotics, and you want to get on them today. Like, put everything down that you have, go and find them right now and get on it before you do anything else, because a lot of people end up waiting too long. They go to the hospital, they get told by the doctor, you got colitis, it's permanent, there's nothing you can do, you're never going to heal, we need you to stay here and do blah blah blah, and then you end up wasting your precious time and life wasting away in a hospital room when you could be very quickly healing yourself. So make sure you get on this as soon as you possibly can. Okay, so with clay, when you're taking it, like I was saying earlier, it redirects all of the channels of elimination. So basically, if you would have been sweating certain toxins out through your sweat, the clay will take it instead. That will be redirected and pushed through and directly into the clay. Or if it was supposed to go to your urine normally, it will push it to the clay. I'm sure there's exceptions to certain things like salt and whatnot, but the clay will literally act as a redirecting agent. If you put it on your skin, on the surface of your skin, all the toxins will be redirected and predominantly forced and pushed into that clay. So I mean, it's such an incredible, powerful tool. I consider it almost as like adding an extra path of elimination for the body. There's other ways of taking clay, like you can use bentonite in baths, but the best way is doing retention enemas, because you have all of it concentrated in one place for as long as you need it. And or orally, either way. I mean, if you have Crohn's, you want to do it orally. If you have colitis, you do it the other route. And either way, or do it both at the same time. That's even better. And if you're sick, just drink it anyway. You have nothing to lose. It's not going to hurt you. It's the safest thing you could ever put in your body. It's just going to clean you out of all the toxic waste that your colon is struggling with. It's trying to kill those bacteria that are creating all these toxins and crap that your body can't deal with. By adding that clay in, your body then has this massive upper edge over the toxic waste that is in the colon, and it'll just push and pump all of that stuff into the clay, which otherwise is struggling so hard with to remove. And that's really all you need to do. Also, if you are incapable of going to the bathroom, or you have a problem where your appetite is gone, and you're not capable of consuming or orally digesting or any kind of food products and things like that, that's the perfect time to use bentonite clay. Now, in rectal infusions, it's very similarly to how we take the kefir, except you take 3 to 5 tablespoons of bentonite, make it into a cup or two of water. You wanna if you can get like a cup or two of this inside of you, that would be absolutely mind blowing. How quickly you're gonna cleanse your body is gonna, especially if you have colitis, it's gonna cleanse everything directly into that clay immediately. It won't take long for that whole part of your body to cleanse. But even if you have diarrhea and you're not able to hold down food, well, bentonite clay isn't really like food. It is a little bit, but not really. It is a little bit more like fiber, but not really. It is very gentle and it's very smooth and it is very anti-inflammatory. As it's touching and it's going through your organs, it pulls literally all of the toxic waste that is inside the cellular membranes that your body is struggling to release, and it just binds it right up like a magnet. It sucks it out, very much like you see when drug addicts or others are healed and saved through the application of activated charcoal. It's the same thing. So it'll soak up all those toxins and really improve a person's situation very, very rapidly. And it does that better than any kind of fiber. It does that better than psyllium husk and flax and chia seeds or insoluble fiber or soluble fiber or clear fiber drinks that you drink. Bentonite does it better because it literally binds it up and pulls it out like a magnet. And if you put it inside your body, all your channels of elimination will direct all of the toxins that would have gone through your urine or through your sweat. It'll get pulled in and put into there. If you put the clay on your skin and leave it on your skin, it'll all get redirected and it'll get pushed through the skin directly into the clay. You can peel that clay off a few hours later and you'll see it's toxic. It's all covered in black soot from all the heavy metals and things that are being pushed out of your skin. So it really works with your body in many forms, in many ways, but one of the fastest and most profound and powerful ways to cleanse is to put it directly into the large intestine as a retention enema. And what will happen is, because it's sitting right beside your artery, it'll cleanse your blood, it'll cleanse your colon, it'll cleanse all of that, and it'll cleanse it directly where the colitis is, but it'll also clean your entire body. You're going to feel it cleansing out your whole body. So, yeah. Bentonite clay really helps to relieve the burden of detoxification off the body in certain ways, because usually the body has to carry those toxins through the tissues, through the kidneys, through the intestines, through other and various organs of elimination, through the skin, etc. And of course the colon is already very toxic because of all the toxins being released by the bad bacteria, and it just makes it impossible for your colon to function at its finest because of the swelling and the lack of appetite in some people, or the lack of bowel movement, or things like that can cause a problem. Perhaps even diarrhea on another level can be an issue that way. But with bentonite clay, it basically, what will happen with the body is that it will actually reroute the channels of elimination in order to take advantage of this clay. So, because it actually is one of the most efficient, it's actually more efficient than the skin and the urine and most of the other methods of elimination that the body uses. So what will happen is then the toxins that would have otherwise been secreted through your sweat or through your urine will end up being rerouted and channeled back through and into the clay inside your body instead. And that's how powerful clay is, and similar with activated charcoal. It operates in a very similar way. It takes the toxins, your body will reroute all that stuff and move it into the clay instead, where it's bound up and allows your body to deal with it a lot better, because your tissues and your organs no longer have to hold on to that until it's eventually excreted. Plus, because it has a magnetic-like component to it, it's able to pull out heavy metals, mercury, methyl mercury, and all kinds of garbage in the colon that's very often associated with candida, which is also very much associated with all of these various illnesses and bacterial overgrowth and things like that. Generally, you're going to probably have an issue with candida at the same time, which is very well known to hyperaccumulate heavy metals, all kinds of heavy metals, but in particular methyl mercury. And people find when they kill off the candida, or then they find heavy metals being released in heavier quantities in the bloodstream. When they start removing and chelating and pulling out heavy metals, they start noticing the candida starts going into the bloodstream more, or into the body more, in different ways. There's an interaction going on there. So by including this bentonite clay, you're going to really enhance, and I would say it's a necessity, or it's a very, very important component to this protocol. So make sure that you get yourself some bentonite clay and use that in conjunction with the probiotics. There is this is it. This is what I forgot to mention. Now, here's another method, and here's another way of really speeding up the process of recolonizing the body. Okay, recolonizing your body with the kefir water, kefir milk, preferably kefir milk. So, if you really want to speed up the process orally, so like I say, like, it's pre-digested. It's hard for your body to. It's so easy for your body to break down and eat and digest and this and like that. Basically, most of that kefir is going to be absorbed in your small intestine, and it's not going to necessarily get to the large intestine in the quantities that you would want if you really want to end the battle right away and fight it out, win it instantly, and like really prevent a lot of unnecessary detoxification and like reactions to the kefir thing. That's why hitting at both ends is so important. But if you want to speed that up, and if you want to really increase that, the process of recolonizing your entire digestive system in as quickly and profoundly as you possibly can, I'd recommend drinking about 1 liter of kefir. It says, so drink that kefir, and immediately after, eat about 5 grams, about 5 grams of vitamin C. Now, when you take about 3 to 5 grams of vitamin C, is more than enough to liquefy everything in your colon. And basically, you'll notice that if you take 2 or more grams, it might even only be a couple grams for some of us, but like for me, it's like 5 to 10 grams of vitamin C will basically create this crazy action in the colon, where like you can hear the gas and feel the gas moving up and down and up and down, and everything is just mixing and moving and just changing its place and swishing around, and everything just starts going crazy on its own. These bacteria are like releasing all kinds of chemical things and releasing it as a gas and trying to communicate from one part of the colon to another part of the colon. They're communicating with each other in all these weird ways, and the vitamin C basically puts into hyperdrive the act of the mixing and motion of the entire colon as one whole unit. And you will notice that when you do take an hyperdose, or take a sufficient quantity of vitamin C, you might want to look that up just to be sure, like what average dosage runs. For me, it's at least like 3 to 5 grams. But what will happen is the kefir that you just ingested is going to be like put through like a amusement ride park of motion through your body, prior to it being actually digested and absorbed into your system. So the probiotics are going to be forced through and move through your body in every crevice, everywhere, in a very, 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 very rapid and short period of time, compared to just drinking kefir on its own. And it sounds wild, but that is one way you can very much speed up the recolonization process of your colon. It is by doing just that. So about 5 grams of vitamin C. It's going to cause you to get really your body and your bacteria are going to start moving everything around very, very rapidly. But if you're ingesting like a tremendous amount of kefir, like a liter, I'd say like a liter would be a great thing for that. Maybe drink another liter of kefir a few hours later if you're still feeling that action going on in your gut. All this stuff's being moved around. Keep that up, keep it up. With that combination, what you're doing is you're just coating your entire digestive system almost instantly. It's as fast as you possibly could imagine. You're just coating everything in this probiotic, head to toe, not giving any bad guys any room whatsoever to fucking even think of like trying to outcompete the bacteria. They can't. It's impossible. You've just coated your entire digestive system in just a few hours, completely and utterly and totally. And that is it. And your dysbiosis is gone. And like, ow, that hurt. My finger. Broke my finger recently. It's still healing. Anyway, one very important method I recommend if you're going to be doing this vitamin C technique. Of course, you want to be taking baking soda, about a tablespoon, before ingesting the kefir, obviously to neutralize the pH of your stomach acid so that your stomach acid will not break down the kefir. That will significantly help it. I just tried that myself last night, and I was absolutely blown away how effectively that kefir went through, and it went all the way through to the other side. But if you want to use this vitamin C, I do recommend you also combine equal quantity of vitamin C with baking soda and mix that in water. So if you're going to use 3 grams of vitamin C, take 3 grams of baking soda, mix that together, and what you're doing when that happens is you're neutralizing the pH of the ascorbic acid, and at the same time you're converting it into sodium ascorbate, it's called. Otherwise, your body will have to neutralize the pH by taking calcium and other minerals from your bones, teeth, and other organs. And so, and at the same time, we just took some probiotics. You don't want, and baking soda prior to, and so you don't want to be adding more acid into the mix. So by neutralizing the vitamin C, by adding an equal quantity of baking soda, that will completely neutralize the pH and convert it from ascorbic acid to sodium ascorbate, which is basically the same thing. It'll have the exact same effect. It will liquefy your gut, except it's not going to increase the pH of your body. It makes it easier on your system. It's easier to digest. If you look it up, there's more information in the links below. That's one way of doing it. Another method that I found has induced such a kind of microbiotic kind of reaction that's very intense and very powerful is by rectal infusions or oral infusions of EDTA. Disodium EDTA in particular is what I used. Now EDTA, taken at around 2 to 3 grams, will induce quite a similar response in the body. It is also 4 vinegar molecules combined into one chain. It's very similar, I guess, to acid. Vinegar is acidic. It kind of has a similar effect on the body, sort of. But this stuff removes heavy metals. It removes lead, mercury, and it can also remove a lot of the mercury that you end up getting from candida, which really mass produces and hyperaccumulates methyl mercury in the intestines, which can also be one of the main problem that is kind of difficult to deal with during the cleansing phase. The bentonite clay will already pull out all that methyl mercury out of your body. It'll just absolutely soak that stuff up so quickly that you're not going to have any negative detox symptoms or methyl mercury flying around your body going into your brain or anything like that. It's going to be all pulled out by the bentonite. So you do not have to worry about that, but EDTA will do the same thing as well, and that's a whole other topic. I'm going to make a whole new video on EDTA, but this is important to mention given how it has similar effects as the vitamin C does on the body. The addition of EDTA as well through rectal infusions is the only way to do it. You get a 95% absorption rate taking it rectally and only 5% eating it orally, because it's acted as a protein in the body, and the body breaks it down, and then it no longer has the same effect. So you save a lot of money this way too, and you get way more than what you bargained for if you do it rectally in a really good way. So you do 1 to 3 grams rectally, it does the same thing, and I found that the bacteria in the gut are doing a very similar thing. They're all communicating with each other. Things are moving very rapidly. They're creating gas, and that gas then goes from one location to another, and these bacteria are just like basically go through this hyper transformation where they're recolonizing everything in the body and doing all kinds of very wild things, and it all largely has to do with, I guess, methyl mercury and other issues that could rise in the body. But what I do know, and what I do see, and what is very obvious, is it's creating this huge mixing and flowing of liquids. The liquids are going up the colon, and then they're going down the colon, they're going left, and they're going right, and they're going through. Everything is just going through this rapid transformation. And if you have kefir all throughout your gut when that's happening, it's just gonna coat you like crazy, and it's gonna recolonize your whole body in such a rapid way that nothing I can think of can compare to that. If you take enough magnesium, that will also liquefy your stool and induce a bit of diarrhea-like symptoms. So if you have magnesium and that's all you've got, you can't afford vitamin C, or you don't have vitamin C, you could take a little bit of extra magnesium, and that can help speed that process. The reason why that people get the runs when they take magnesium, though, is mainly because it's responsible for over 800 enzymatic reactions in the body. And so your body is basically mass producing all of these enzymes that end up breaking down everything so fast and so quickly that it just becomes liquid. It can't even exist in your body without it being forced out or just flushed out, because these enzymes, you're taking all these enzymes, and your enzymes just break it all down, and suddenly it's just slip and slide. Nothing can even exist in you because you're overproducing. You're producing so many enzymes that nothing can even stick to anything, and you get the runs. Okay. A similar thing. Okay, so when people get sick, the last thing I'm going to mention before I shut this down, it's been 2 hours at least. It's a long video. Okay. So I have basically summed up everything I've wanted to mention so far in this video, and I'm going to produce another video that is much shorter. It's just basically focusing on the protocol itself. I'm going to try to keep that within maybe 10 minutes or less, of a program, so people can use that for quick reference. So please subscribe, please check out the other videos, and please leave your comments below and your experiences following this protocol. I just wish you luck and the best, and just know that you can heal from this. This is not a permanent condition. This is something that you can fight off and win that battle. So don't give up hope, and do whatever you can, and I just wish you all the best, and God bless you, and you take care.